Right, the imperfections, you're okay. That overtime's gonna work. Look for shots off of it though. Yeah.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'm here with someone very special. Somebody that, man, I could go on and on about all the people that's told me, if you're going to have somebody on, you need to have this guy on. So he's well respected in the wrestling world and the world beyond. But he's got plenty of accolades of himself, but he's a guy that's coached up a lot of incredible wrestlers and seems to be the guru of the sport. So that's what I've been told, and I've had firsthand experience around him a little bit. He just carries an energy about him that's great, and I'm excited to have Tervel, and then help me with your last name. It's
Dlagnev.
Dlagnev. I didn't know if it was Dlagnev or Dlagnev.
I mean, honestly, I don't either. I mean, it was. I think we say Dlag, but I mean, it was translated phonetically.
Uh-huh.
You know, when we moved from Bulgaria, different alphabet. So
yeah.
You pretty much just do what you want.
It's close enough the other way.
Exactly.
Well, welcome, Tervel. I mean, like I said in my little intro there, almost every person that's sitting in that seat has said, because I do a little thing at the end, who would you want to see on here? A bulk of them have said you. So you've been referred by many. It's called the call out. So you've been called out by many, and that's just a testament for who you are as a person and what you've brought to these people's lives. And I'm excited to get into that. Before we get into all that stuff, I would like to go back to the beginning. You said that that you didn't live here your whole life. So kind of give me your background. Where'd you grow up? What was your childhood like, and so forth?
Yeah, we're first generation immigrants. I was born in Sofia, Bulgaria, and I don't remember much of Bulgaria. I do remember getting on a train very early. So that's kind of like my first memory, is getting on a train to leave Bulgaria and driving through the night through to Austria. And then we lived in a refugee camp for a year in Austria, and my dad got us all green cards. And obviously the grown-up side of this, I don't know too much about how the inner work. I was a kid, and I didn't ask too many questions along the way. But we were able to come over with green cards. But I do remember my mom tells an interesting story. So she said that we were supposed to leave the next morning, and this is when kind of the fall of the USSR, all that stuff's going down. Just a lot of kind of economic turmoil is about to start. And so we're supposed to leave early the next morning. And my mom's like, man, I think we should leave right now. And my dad's like, what do you think? What are you talking about? It's midnight. We're going to get on a train. Like, she's like, so stay there. There's this whole shtick. They have it out. And she convinces my dad we should leave right now. And at 4 a.m. So we got on a train at like 1:30 a.m. Okay. And we were supposed to leave at like 6 or 7, and at 4 a.m. they closed the border. So it's pretty interesting. And so we lived in Austria for a while. I remember that. I remember trying to learn to ride a bike. It was just like one building in the center of a field and like a tree belt around it, and then everyone just hung out. It was just a bunch of refugees.
Yeah.
And so we got over to the States. We moved to San Diego first. My dad joined the U.S. Army, and he served there. So we got moved from San Diego to El Paso with the Army. Then he was finished with his time. And then my mom, what did I do? I did through second grade, I think, in San Diego, and then second through fifth in El Paso. And then my mom got a job in Arlington, and I went in Arlington, Texas, sixth grade through high school and beyond. So my mom and my sister and her husband are still down in that area, kind of the Arlington area in Texas. But as far as growing up, it was a little difficult at first for me. Like, my sister picked up on English very well. I had a problem. Like, I had a tough time, like, learning to read, write. And so I was in like a bilingual class for a long time.
Yeah.
But through fifth grade and then sixth grade, I went into like normal classes, but ended up catching up. It was okay. I really wasn't too motivated. I was kind of a C student, just because of a lack of effort.
Sure.
So and then didn't really do anything, no sports. I mean, I dabbled in this and that, but never really had any structure as far as that. And my parents were too busy working.
Sure.
So
This is all the way up to middle school. You didn't have really much experience?
Yeah, I mean, nothing. Just playing Pokemon cards and and you know, just making bad decisions with my friends.
Yeah, sure. So dad comes over immediately, joins the military.
Mm-hmm.
Is that something that he thought that he would do prior to leaving Bulgaria, or?
So here's the so with my dad, it's kind of hard to tell because by the time I got old enough to ask some of these like questions, he was like manic depressant and he was an alcoholic,
Sure.
and he kind of got off in this like world where like you didn't know what reality was, right?
Gotcha.
So he had this. So when I asked him at one point, he like had this whole spiel about how he was a, you know, he sold secrets to the American government, and that's how he got the city. It was like I didn't know what, you know.
Right,
it's like,
right.
So he gave me this whole elaborate like movie theme of how he's
Sure.
like this you know, this Ronin spy,
Right.
And I'm like, okay, well,
You're not sure.
So I don't
never know.
yeah. So, but as far as I know, you know, he not a lot of, it was hard to get out. Not a lot of people got out and were able to get citizenship, but
Right.
But I think the main piece of the army was, if you joined the army, you got like instant citizenship. Because I remember like within the year, like my mom took a test, my dad took a test, and then my sister and I just had to say an oath. Well, I remember like this, the Capitol building, and like doing like hand on the Bible, like,
Yeah.
you know, foreign and domestic, we were protected, whatever.
Yeah.
So the
Yeah.
oath. So yeah, I remember that.
Okay, so you're a military kid. When your dad gets out, and you're still, you guys decide to stay in the Texas area.
Yep. So my dad got out and he started driving trucks, and my mom, and again, I don't know how they found this so far away, because this seems like now as an adult, I'm like, that's a weird, you know, but my mom found a janitorial job in Arlington. She's like, I'm like, there had to be janitorial work in El Paso.
Right.
you
Yeah,
know?
for sure.
But it's
Yeah.
like, but I remember we moved specifically because my mom had this job. She's like, oh, my mom's going to have a job. My dad can drive from anywhere.
Yeah.
You know, he's just going to drive trucks. So we're moving to Arlington.
Was there a Bulgarian like group that you guys were like hung out with? Were you like other families?
No. We just Lone Ranger straight up. So
Wow.
it was, yeah, we didn't have, I mean, no other family came out with us, and it was just mom, dad, sister, me. And we didn't, there was no like Bulgarian community or anything
Wow.
like that. Yeah.
Yeah. And so that, what year is that around? Like in the
1990 was the year we got here. So probably move into Arlington like 95, 96.
Okay. How was the culture and the climate of people, were they pretty accepting in that area of you? Was there any kind of backlash at all, or is it just, how'd you feel, you know, being that age coming in the United States?
I mean, it wasn't like, it was more like childish stuff, like nothing serious. I don't remember
Sure.
anything serious. I think my dad had it like a little rougher as far as like his experience. And I think a lot of it was in his own head. He made it harder for himself. But I think he had some bad experiences with some people. But for me, it was like kids making fun of, you know, the fact that I didn't know this word or couldn't say that word, right? At first,
Sure.
but as a kid, I don't even remember being like shaken up about it. I just remember being
Rolling
like, oh
with it.
yeah, you know, just rolling with it. I will say one relatively traumatic experience on that regard was when I moved from San Diego to El Paso. I got mistakenly put in a regular second grade class, and it was a mess. So like we start with the Pledge of Allegiance. We had never done that.
Oh, wow.
So we had never done the pledge. So
Yeah.
I have no idea what's happening. So then this teacher's like, put your hand on your heart. So I'm like this, and then I put my left hand on my heart, and she's like, your right hand. And she comes over, she changes my hands. She's super, super like aggressive about it. And so I'm already like, okay. And then, so I don't know the words. So I'm just like, I'm like pretending to mouth these words. And she's like super mad at me. And so during the lesson, we went around, and it was like, we had a passage to read. And so it was like, you know, one kid read 2 sentences, the next kid all the way around. So everyone reads 2 sentences. And when it got to me, I was like just sounding it out super slow, like phonetically,
Right.
you know? And she literally says, are you dumb? Do you need to be in a bilingual class?
Oh my gosh.
Like very like angrily,
Yeah.
right? She's like, are you dumb? Do you need to be in a bilingual class? And I'm like, so I got home, I'm like, I was panicked. I was like, I
Sure.
can't do this, you know? But then once I got into bilingual class, it was great. It was like my speed.
Yeah.
And at that point, it was in El Paso. It was like me and like 15 Hispanic kids.
Okay.
And so
Yeah.
I learned more Spanish than I did English.
Oh, wow.
You know, because it was like I just hung out with them.
Yeah.
But it was at that point I loved my teachers. It was I remember it very fondly.
Sure. Was the experience, you know, like you said, making friends and stuff like that, was that in El Paso? Was that or even as you moved, was that something that was pretty easy for you, or are you pretty social?
I think I don't know if I'm social. I think that I'm somewhere in the middle. Like I'm more introverted, but I'm not shy.
Right.
So I don't prefer like large crowds and strangers, but I'm definitely like, if there's people around, I'm like, you know, as a kid, it's like, let's go play. Let's do cool stuff.
Right.
You know, so I don't think it was that hard. I do think that I made friends relatively easily.
Yeah.
So I don't remember being like very lonely.
Sure.
Because we always, and even if it wasn't like school, we didn't live in house. We lived in apartment complexes.
So you had
so there was like tons of kids, right?
Yeah, for
so
sure.
everyone's just outside.
Yeah.
You go to an area, a bunch of kids. You don't even introduce yourself. You just start playing.
Right.
You know?
That's what I think that's one thing I love about, you know, kids and stuff. It's like, if you just watch them, they know how to like have community better than we do. There isn't permission necessarily, especially at an early age. It's just, we're here, we're playing, everybody's invited, you know. And I feel like that's one thing we lose as we get older. It becomes more about, you know, this community or this little, you know, it's these invisible lines that people are afraid to cross, and it's like we're missing out on so much. You know, I'm kind of like you in a sense that I kind of grew up a little more extroverted, I'd say, but I'm definitely an internal processor, but I love community. You know, I love great conversations. I love to sit around with people that understand things and say stuff and help me think. But we lose that when we kind of put our picket fences up and say, that's your side, this is my side, you know. So that's cool that you had that. I actually think that maybe the apartment complex was better, you know, for that environment than just the home.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, obviously when you get older and it's like, everyone's got the name brands and I got the Payless, and it's like you start to feel like the wage discrepancy.
Sure.
You know, when you get older,
right?
And it's not even, it's a perspective, right? Because I was never like we were poor, but it wasn't like I didn't experience it until someone told me we were poor. Right? It was like one of those things.
For sure.
It was like once you like tell them like, oh yeah, you. Because it was like, for me, it was like, well, these shoes are fine.
Yeah.
It's like, but they're not cool.
Yeah.
And they're not $100, right? So those are $14.99, and I'm gonna make fun of you for it, right? Or it's like, those jeans, would you get them at Walmart? It's like, well, yeah, I did.
Yeah.
You know?
So, it felt great until you said something.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So for me, it was one of those things where, you know, we didn't have a big house.
Yeah.
We had an apartment, and we had, you know, as I grew, like when we first got the apartment complex, it was like very tame.
Yeah.
But by the time I was in 7th grade, it was like what I would say the middle class would call ghetto, right? Where it was like, I mean, I remember being in we were playing video games in my buddy's house, and his parents were smoking weed right behind him. Right. So it's like it was like lower class, like a lot of drugs. You know, all my friends were into drugs.
Gotcha.
All my friends, you know, I'm talking, you know, junior high kids selling drugs, you know, doing drugs, selling drugs, exchanging. I was around it all the time. And, you know, obviously I wasn't a Christian at the time, but I can, you know, retrospectively, it's like God kind of saved me from a lot of stuff. Cause like I had very cheesy reasons not to partake. Right.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I remember thinking like, well, this is bad for you. Right. But it's like, well, everyone knows it's bad for you.
Yeah.
But it was like, but I kind of stuck to it, and it was never difficult for me. So that wasn't like an addiction point for me. It was like, my dad, you know, we grew up in a Bulgarian family. My dad was cool with me drinking beer from the age of 10, but I just never did because it smelled bad. I was like, that smells terrible.
Yeah.
Like, why would anyone want to drink that?
Right.
So I never had any alcohol. I was around, every single one of my friends smoked or sniffed some kind of substance.
Right.
But I just remember thinking like, that's really bad for you. So I'm just not going to do it.
So where did you get that? Like, why was the health side of it? Do you know where that came from?
Well, the initial one, I think it was literally like the 2nd grade. I just remember like the 2nd grade dare officer, you know, coming to school, and he's like, don't do drugs. They're terrible. And so I just remember it just like reverberates into your brain where you're like, I think that stuff's bad for you.
Oh, wow.
And I was always very scared to put like I don't have any tattoos. Like I was very scared of like things going in me. You know?
Yeah,
So I'm like,
makes sense.
so whether that's a personality trait or what, but obviously, I was able to be protected from that because when sometimes I share some stories with my wife and she's like, you gotta have, you're messed up somewhere. You just like, it's somewhere in your subconscious. I'm like, I just don't, because but again, it wasn't like visceral. It wasn't like you guys are scumbags and I'm so much better. It was like this. No, can we hang out? Like hurry up and smoke the joint so we can play.
Yeah.
You know, because I still want to be, I'd like you guys.
Yeah.
It's all good. I just don't want to do it.
And they respected that pretty well.
Well, for a while it was like, hey, do it. But then once you stand your ground long enough, it almost becomes something that they respect. Right?
That is very true.
Because it's like after a couple months, it was just like, oh, that's Tervel doesn't do that. And then when someone new introduced to the group that would try to get me to do it, they would almost stick up for me. Like, no, he doesn't. No, don't leave him alone. He doesn't do it.
Yeah.
You know, like the guys that used to like pressure me would just be like, oh no, that's Tervel. He doesn't. Nah, don't do that. He's not gonna take that.
That's cool.
So it's very interesting. Like people think that like peer pressure doesn't last forever.
That's right.
Like eventually people like to try to pressure people to do it for whatever reasons. There's a lot of reasons.
Yeah.
There's they make themselves feel better about it. They like it, so they want to introduce to you, whether or not it's bad or not.
Right.
But people are selfish. Sure. Eventually, they're going to stop caring about you, and they're just going to live their life.
Yeah, it's true.
So it's like, well, I'm going to stop begging them to do it. I'm just going to do it, and then we'll just hang out.
Yeah, that's a great. I mean, that's truth. It's just, I guess when sometimes you're in it, it feels like it's the biggest thing ever. You know, so you cave, and then. You know, you learn from you make mistakes or whatever. But with that peer pressure thing, how about culturally? Did you catch on pretty easily? Were you kind of integrated pretty easily into the American culture? Did you feel like you fit? Was there ever that time where you kind of you didn't feel like you fit?
I mean, I don't remember being like there was like very specific moments in time where I would be like, I don't understand what they're talking about. Right. Like maybe like, just things in American history or like things that seemed like, okay, everyone here knows what's going on and I don't.
Right.
But it didn't feel like it was just an all encompassing, like I don't fit into this group. It was just like this moment in time. I don't know what's going on.
Right.
So I'm going to kind of like, So it was just moment by moment. Yeah. It wasn't like, there wasn't like this existential dread of like, I just need a place to belong. It was like, I was just kids, right? We were just, doing whatever we want.
Yeah, for sure. Now going into, you said middle school, not much sports. And where did you find sports in high school? Was it like freshman year or
sophomore year? Sophomore year.
Okay, so give me that. So you just wrestling, or did you get involved? I mean, you're a big guy. Did they try to pull you out on the football team? Texas is a big football.
Well, so here's my sports journey. Yeah. So like in El Paso, in like second or third grade, I tried out. I did soccer. Little kid soccer, and I did it for one season. So whatever, whatever season, 8 weeks, whatever the kid season is. And because we love soccer, like we're a soccer family. Yeah. Right. So, and I love soccer. It's super cool, but it was me and just 20 blazing fast Hispanic kids. And I was like, Mom, why can't I keep up? Like, why am I so slow? So it's like, so it was very difficult. So like, I could like understand the game and I could like technically, compartmentalize what had to be done, but it was like the speed and, the body control. And I think that, a lot of those kids at that age, I mean, like in that culture, especially Hispanic, like they grow up, they start in kindergarten. Yeah. So they had 4 years under their belt. Right. And that's another thing. It's like, no one prepared me. No one in my family did sports. And so no one prepared me for this idea that it's like, hey, these kids have been doing this longer. I just thought it was like, they're good. I'm not. Right. Okay. Right. So I think that like, I definitely would have had more of a chance to stick with it, or at least tried it more longer if someone was like, don't you like, obviously they've been doing this for years. Right. But I just thought I was like, I just can't keep up with these guys. Yeah. And then, so I played a lot of basketball in the apartment complex. And so I tried out for 7th grade basketball and I didn't make it. And so that was kind of like so those are my two. So I tried a season of soccer.
How big were you going in to 7th grade?
7th grade, I was like 150, 160.
Were you pretty tall?
5'10"-ish, maybe 5'11". So not crazy. But I was, and I remember thinking like, man, because I really thought I was like, okay, I'm sweet. but I didn't make it. So.
yeah.
So then I just kind of didn't, I just got into others. I did Pokemon cards, Magic the Gathering, just kind of like I never did Dungeons and Dragons, but it was like that type of that realm, right? Mm-hmm. And I enjoyed it, but then it was like, again, I needed, I still, it wasn't enough to like get me super motivated, right? That was still like a very like chill hobby.
Well, yeah. What kind of person are you at this point? Are you pretty low key?
Yeah. I mean, I think I'm generally kind.
Yeah.
So I've always been like kind,
sure.
Right? So I wasn't like I'm never been a bully. Mm-hmm. I'm nice to people just out of the gates,
right?
And I'm relatively chill, but I'm also kind of I don't have a lot of respect for authority at this point. So my mom is awesome. My dad's a little crazy. I still don't know he's crazy at this point, but he is crazy. Mm-hmm. And so I'm kind of going through, and there's not a ton of discipline, not a ton of life teaching. It was kind of just like, these are the people that pay for my apartment. Mm-hmm. I love, and we hug, this is my mom and dad, but it wasn't like, they never imparted like life advice.
Is that and I know I'm not trying to generalize, but in the Bulgarian culture, is it dad works real hard, mom takes care of the family type thing? Is that?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. Yeah, I mean, the gender roles are very distinct. Sure. I think that it's like that sort of thing. But like we weren't in the case where, I mean, my mom worked crazy. Yeah, but she made dinner for the family every night. We had family dinner, and it was the case where it was like, man, I wish we could just eat fast food like all my friends. And my mom's making these meals. And now it's like, man, where's mom at?
Exactly.
All I eat is fast food.
Yeah, I know, right?
But so yeah, it was an interesting thing because I every now and again I would get in these like clips of like, okay, I'm gonna be this and that, but I would always find myself like, I think my identity was rooted in, because I was kind of chubby, I was overweight, I was relatively liked but not popular,
right?
Because I was in nothing.
Yeah, sure.
So I was in no programs, and I wasn't like handsome or jacked. Like there was nothing that stood out. It was just like that guy. So it was like no one had a big problem with me.
Yeah.
But also no one was calling me, to like be like, oh, what's up? Let's hang out. So so I was kind of just there. So I found my niche in just being like the class clown. I was relatively clever. I could I had a kind of a fast wit for my age. So I could snap little retorts and at teachers and this. So I got in a lot of trouble off of just silly stuff.
Yeah.
Like it wasn't like terrible, like I would go, vandalize the school, but it was always like talking over and over and over. And after the teacher told me for the 15th time, okay, principal's office, now I'm in big trouble. So
was that a defense mechanism, you think? I mean, I think we all have those. Mine was, I know I was class clown as well, but that was because I was small. I was very undersized for all my friends. So I had to kind of learn quick what my part was to contribute. And it was to make people laugh, so the attention wouldn't be on me otherwise. Was that similar for you? Or
I mean, I'd imagine so. I think that it was either...
Did you just pull a softball out of your back?
Yeah, this is, I usually just... I have lower back issues when I sit.
It's just random. I didn't expect to see a softball. Yeah.
I mean, I'd imagine that it definitely something.
Sure.
So I think that that's where I thought was like, okay, this makes me viable.
Yeah.
This makes me like
for sure.
This keeps me off of the butt of the jokes.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
If I'm making the jokes.
Yeah, right. So for sure. So at that point, you're kind of the class clown. You don't find wrestling until your sophomore year. How does that happen?
Well, I remember seeing it freshman year on the. So in Texas, you have a block scheduling, and you can actually, if you're in a sport, you actually have a sports class.
Oh, nice.
So like one of your blocks is your sport. Instead of PE, you have that sport. And so you could use it as a lift, you could use it as whatever.
Okay.
And so I saw wrestling as an elective, and I'm thinking, like, you hit people with chairs. Because I had been like a WWF fan,
for sure.
Now WWE,
yeah.
At the time. And, so my buddies and I would always watch Stone Cold, The Rock, and, so we were really into that. And so I'm like, stop. They let you do this? And they're like, no. So the way it was described to me, which is silly now that I have been in wrestling, but it's like, no. It's like you lock up fingers like mercy, and then you like, it's basically like play mercy.
Oh, wow.
And I'm like, that sounds cheesy.
Yeah.
All right. So, but second year, it was during PE. So again, it's the same time. So we have PE class, and then the wrestlers are doing whatever they're doing. So they lifted during the block. And so I would see them run laps, then I would see them lift, and they're all huffing and puffing. And I'm like, and at this point I'm kind of getting into like health.
Yeah.
Now, very, very poorly educated, but I'm reading bodybuilder magazines, and I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
I'm like, if I get jacked, I'm going to get popular, and everything's going to change. So I joined wrestling. I told my PE teacher, I'm gonna join wrestling. I'm gonna get fit. And so he just kind of randomly tells the wrestling coach, and the wrestling coach is like, come on, so I went, and I didn't miss a practice. I started in November, went to every single practice, every lift, but I was still not super motivated as far as like anything else. I just needed a schedule for workout. Like I wasn't like, I love wrestling.
Right.
I was like, I just need sweating, consistent structure for hard work.
So it was more, like you said, it was more about fitness for you than anything. Getting jacked.
Yeah. And so but it was a mess. So my idea was, okay, so here was my, so it's okay. So so fat is the issue, right? So fat on your belly is not aesthetic. So my idea behind it was, well, if you don't eat any fat, you won't get fat.
Okay.
So everything I'm looking at, I just ate zero fat. So it's like skim milk, cereal with buckets of sugar, but zero fat. So everything was, okay, does it have zero fat? How much fat does it have in it? Zero fat. So there was a time where like, I went like probably 6-7 weeks on like, literally, I mean, I don't remember anything I ate with fat.
Wow.
So probably jacked up my hormones at some point. But now that
probably messed yourself up a little bit, but yeah.
But I went from like 220 to like 160.
Oh my gosh.
Just like melted. Because it was probably just caloric intake.
Yeah.
Like I just wasn't eating that much.
Yeah.
And I'm working out crazy. And I remember it was also another one of my bright ideas was, well, every time you eat, just work out right after, and you'll burn what you ate. And that's how you lose weight. So it's like I had a little bench press. So I was like every meal I would go and like just do a workout.
Wow.
Just some kind of reps of something.
This massive overtraining.
So I just got like this crazy obsession.
Yeah.
And but I'm still, if classes, I was a good test taker because I can memorize. So it's like if classes were heavily tested, I was sweet.
Yeah.
If it was heavily homework and papers, I didn't open my backpack home. I just got zero. So I'm in and out of classes. So I'm still failing every now and again. I fail a class, so it was no pass, no play. So I couldn't compete at all.
Oh wow.
So the first year I didn't compete. I just practiced, but I went to every practice.
Yeah.
And that summer, going into my junior year, my coach took me around to a bunch of freestyle tournaments, and it was almost like it was begrudging because I was like, I'm gonna miss my lifts. I'm gonna get out of schedule. And he's like, no, you got to come to this. You got to come to this. And so I did it. And by the end of it, it kind of became my thing. Like I was like,
so
oh, okay.
One season on the mat, you kind of like, I can do this.
Yeah. And so that summer when I competed, and I think, and I picked it up relatively fast. And that next year, it was just, that was my thing.
What weight did you wrestle when you first started?
I started, I believe it was 180.
Okay.
So there was a weight class in Texas between 71 and 89 that was like kind of exclusive to Texas at the time. We had 15 weights. The rest of the country had 14. And I was 180. And so I started to like build back up normal. I started eating more normal, and I stopped obsessing over, fat. And it was just like, okay, let's try to get good at wrestling.
Yeah.
And after that, my junior year, I got really excited about it. And so at that point, this became my thing. And so I wanted to go to college because I'm like, I'm only going to wrestle for 2 years. And I was really obsessed about it.
Yeah.
So I'm like, well, I got to go to college to wrestle. So I got to get my grades up. So pretty much like junior, senior year, I just got straight A's.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, I got in as many AP courses as I could.
Man.
I just just started doing my work. I mean, I just became a normal person with like, because I mean, high school's not hard.
No, right.
As long as you just go home and like do the work.
That's right.
I just didn't do anything.
Yeah, for sure.
So it was literally just effort.
Yeah, it just showed up and it happened. So you have pretty good success your junior and senior year in high school?
I mean, relative to, you know, what I thought. I mean, I placed at state. I got 4th as a junior.
Your first year actually committed. Yeah.
And then I got 3rd as a senior.
Wow. That is pretty good.
So pretty good. Obviously, it wasn't like awesome on a scale of what else is happening out there.
Yeah, but really new to the sport. I mean,
yeah. So, I mean, I picked it up pretty fast, and I went to Fargo. I went like 2-2 in freestyle, 4-2 in Greco. And so it was kind of one of those things where the recruiting shtick for my coach to other coaches was like, hey, this kid, he hasn't been doing it very much, but it seems like he has a high ceiling. He loves it, and he's getting good fast. You know, he got good fast.
Right.
And our high school didn't have a ton of tradition, so it's like that was impressive for our area. That was impressive for like both years I was the only state. 1 year I was one of 2 state qualifiers, and the only placer. The other one I was the only qualifier and placer. So.
Good deal. So after you find your place on the wrestling team, did that help? Did you kind of solidify a new friend group? Were you part of that the fit in with the wrestlers? Did you like the culture? Like, what drew you to the sport? Why did it stick for you?
I mean, mine was yes to those questions. I mean, I did. I really enjoyed the team. So at the time that there was a couple of kids who were, you know, pretty popular in the school that were wrestlers.
Yeah.
And, you know, so I was like, you know, so my whole thing about this was like, we'll get popular, right? So I definitely was excited about that. I'm like, oh, that's gonna be me. So, but yeah, my friend group totally changed. So I went from like, you know, hanging out with skaters and, you know, the emo, you know, kids and the potheads to like the jocks, right? So like the athletes because I got pretty good. Right. So it's like, you know, you place a state and then it's like, they don't know, no one knows what wrestling is, but it's like, oh, that's cool. Yeah. So I get a new friend group but there was a couple wrestlers on the team that I really liked, but again, that wasn't it. Right. For me, it was like the actual sport. Mm-hmm. It was like that. Like I developed an addiction for like the knack of wrestling. I was like, I want to learn. I want to, you know, I want to be, and obviously I wanted to be good at something, but I also like the sport itself was very addicting to me. Yeah. So I was like, oh man, I know what I could have done. Yeah. I understand why I lost. Yeah. Like there was a very clear path to fix problems. Gotcha. And so that idea was very like cool to me. Yeah. Cause it was like, I had basketball. It was like, well, you're not tall. You're not tall enough. Football, you're not fast enough, right? I mean, you got these, right? Like, so they tried to get me to go out for football once I got good at wrestling. And, right. I was like, I'm not interested because we didn't grow up I didn't like football. I didn't understand it. Mm-hmm. And so for me, the only position that I was like, you know, what we call wide receiver. Right. You know, I'll play wide receiver. And they're like, you're not gonna play wide receiver. You're going to block. And I'm like, that sounds so boring. Like, you're gonna sit there and block. But it's like, I'm sure there's like a nuance to it, but it's like for me that doesn't know anything about football, I want to be the person either throwing or catching the ball. Right. And it's like, well, stop. You're not, that's not you. Right. You know, you can't run that fast. Can't jump that high. Gotcha. So, yeah. So for me, it was just the sport. Yeah. You fell in love with the sport itself. And you said immediately you decided, you know, you want to compete at the next level. How does that look to, I mean, the recruiting process? You finally land on UNK and how does that look? How is that? Well, my high school coach was a Kearney High grad. Okay. And he went to UNK and did his master's there. Mm-hmm. And my assistant coach was the brother of UNK's head coach. Gotcha. So Mark Bauer was the head coach at UNK. Andrew Bauer, his little brother, was my assistant coach. Okay. And so was Coaching Connections. Gotcha. I mean, obviously there was like some, you know, hey, you want this kid? Oh, he can go to the local JUCO. He can this. And I didn't care, but I did want to like the JUCO route was like kind of intimidating because it's like, I have to find another place. Right, exactly. And it's, you know, so it's like, I wanted to just like find one place, you can get a degree, you can wrestle for your lot, and then you bounce. Yep. Right. So it's like, but Kearney had done really well. They got finished second at the nationals, and again, I didn't understand the D1, D2 thing.
Yeah.
You know, I was new to all sports,
Right.
And obviously in Texas, it's one of these things where lower divisions get a really bad rap because it's a football state,
right.
So it's like, if we're being honest, Division II football is very far from Division I football.
Oh yeah.
Like light years.
Yep.
But when you get into the individual sports, it's a little more balanced.
For sure.
So you can get a wrestler who can compete. You can get a thrower who can compete.
Yep.
You can get you can get a trackster who can compete.
Yep.
Because it's individual.
That's right.
Like team sports, that it's just too much.
Yeah.
The disparity is too high.
Right.
But individual sports, it's not ridiculous.
No, for sure not.
But so that was the connection, right? I took a recruiting trip. My SAT score was high enough to waive my out-of-state tuition. So they had this program, and it was super cheap at the time. It was like $8,200 for the year.
Oh shoot, yeah.
So I was like, I can take out loans for that.
Yeah.
That's manageable.
Yeah.
So I came here and to Kearney, and I was like, just I'm gonna give it a go. Like 10 hours from home, no one.
Yeah.
Let's send it.
What did when you landed here? I mean, it's a far stretch from Texas. I mean, in different type of culture. I mean, it's starting over for you. Do you fit in right away? Since you're in the wrestling, do you kind of have a community pretty quick? What's that like?
First semester was tough. It was like, because again, I'm basically a walk-on. I mean, I think they gave me $600 or something.
Yeah.
But it was one of these things where I didn't know. A lot of these kids are local Nebraska kids. They knew each other from high school, so I don't know these kids. But yes, so like once team practice started, it got a little better, and I made friends pretty quick. But there was times where I was like, man, maybe it's not for me. Maybe I got to move back and I'll just do the club at home.
Yeah.
Whatever. Find a local club. But so that piece of it was a little intimidating, but I mean, it resolved pretty quick.
Yeah. What'd you come in, incoming weight? What were you trying to wrestle?
So I was trying to wrestle. So they recruited me for 184. So I was about 205. But they had the returning national champ at 97. So, and the plan was for me to go 84. So I could beat all the other 84s. And so I was going to start as a true freshman. And I made the weight a couple times. I got to the finals of an open here and, placed at an open there, but I broke my ankle like at Christmas at this tournament. And I was terrible. I mean, I had not cut any weight.
Right.
This is my third year wrestling essentially.
Yeah.
And I'm wrestling, college.
Yeah.
So I don't know how to cut weight that well. So I'm just on, I'm like eating ice cream on a Tuesday. Then I'm doing like 3, plastic, stair stepper workouts on a Wednesday. Right. So it's just a mess. And so I make the weight a couple of times, break my ankle, keep making the weight. X-ray doesn't show anything. So I'm like hurt. Like it's like hurts. I can't like use it that well. People are talking like, you just don't want to cut weight. You're soft, So I'm getting like, that's when I'm like, oh man, maybe wrestling's not for me. So I'm getting some second guessing, but then finally I get an MRI. I get it re-rolled in practice one time right before a duel. I get an MRI and then it shows couple bones broken. And so I did the thing where like I didn't have 20% of my season, so I could and I hadn't redshirted, so I could get like a medical right away or something. But so then after that, I ballooned up to like 220, 215, and I was like, I don't care. I'm just gonna go heavyweight.
Yeah.
I'm not cutting weight anymore.
So that was it. So I'm gonna go heavyweight.
That was it.
That's it. And you come back in so you got to wrestle as a freshman again because you took a medical red shirt. So you come in as a heavyweight. So is there a heavyweight in that class already? Do you have to beat that person?
Yeah. So we had so there was a junior. So there was a senior that I had to beat.
Oh, wow.
And I beat him.
Are you, because you started wrestling at 160 some pounds or something like that, you said?
Well, so that's when I was on crazy diet mode.
Right.
I would say when I started like going to practice and stuff, I was probably like right below between 75 and 85.
Okay, so but your styles, probably you're learning as a middleweight, type wrestler. Do you, your style is that's is that better for you going into heavyweight, knowing how to wrestle lighter? I mean, it seems like a lot of those guys have a lot of success that come from low to high. It seems like they're just a little more explosive, a little more athletic, a little stronger. Did you find that to be the case for you at that weight?
Yes. I mean, I don't know, for whatever reason. I just think it was the style of wrestling I enjoyed. So right away, I was like, I just thought it was cool to like shoot to the ankles. I thought it made you look fast. So I would watch John Smith.
Yeah.
I would watch Stephen Abbas, and they're shooting to the ankles. And I'm like, oh, that's so cool. Let me try that. And so I'm diving at ankles, and then I'm figuring out. And then once you do it, like once you think it's cool, then you figure it out, and you're like, okay, this is what I want to do. And then you try to make it work for you. And then once that's one of the stigmas is like, well, it's dangerous, but it's like, well, if you get a guy's ankle, they can't really put that much weight on you.
Right.
And if you crank their knee, it's even less weight, right?
Yep.
So I'm finding all these little things out, and yeah, so I think that just being able to shoot, obviously, I wasn't like super confident, but like my reaction to my fear reaction was shoot, right? So a lot of people's fear reaction at the time was like, back up and be passive. Mine was like, oh no, boom, like close your eyes and dive, right? So it's like I had the opposite fear reaction.
Oh, wow.
It was like, just like, if you're worried about them getting to your leg, just you dive, just go get it, So
That's good.
And so I was a little bit faster than some people. I had some natural timing, obviously I had some gifts, genetic, or whatever. But yeah, it was, I found some success relatively quick.
Yeah. So what's it look like those next 4 years? I mean, I got your list of accolades here, but I'd like to hear how your what your accomplishments are, each year, and plus what it felt like for you climbing that ladder, and what the school kind of felt like.
Well, I love the school.
Yeah.
So after that first year, I made some really good friends, and it was just awesome. I was I came from Texas, and that first year it was like a joke. It was like, oh my gosh, look how small Kearney is.
Yeah.
But then by the end of it, I was like, oh man, this is way cooler.
Yeah.
Like I like this feel. So I start as a redshirt freshman, and I take off. I win some tournaments right away. Don't have any notable wins, so it's almost like we know he's good, but he hasn't met anyone yet.
Right.
Then at national duels over Christmas break, I beat a couple of returning All-Americans, Division II. I beat a bunch of them. I beat everyone on the rankings besides this guy named Les Sigmund, who ended up being a 4-time national champ.
Wow.
For UNO. But he was a junior senior when I was a freshman sophomore, so he was really good, and he beat me. But I beat so after Christmas I was ranked second.
Wow.
So I beat the echelon of guys, and I'm just kind of rolling. And but I wasn't, so I had made a level jump into that level, but then I also wrestled the number 14 ranked guy from Army in Division I, and he beat me up. Or was it Navy? One of the
Right.
so he beat me, significantly, 7-8 points.
Gotcha.
So I'm like, I'm outside of the top 20. Maybe a style clash up, but like I'm not sniffing Division I yet.
Gotcha.
But I'm rolling in Division II. So I'm feeling good about myself. So get to the nationals, I get beat up by Sigmund in the semis, feel sorry for myself, and I go all the way down to 6th. So a couple guys I beat in that year, they get me on the back. I get 6th. But at that point it was like, I'm a freshman All-American,
Yeah. Yeah.
Like I'm the joke was like, I'm the cheapest All-American the school's ever had, right? So
Yeah.
So then I was really excited about it. So trying to find opportunities, like I got on Team Texas to Fargo, to help coach Fargo. And at Fargo, I got to work out with some guys in a national team practice. They're like, any college guys can come to this national. So I'm like, work out with some Division I guys, and it was cool. And so just opportunities like that always presented themselves.
Yeah.
I'm just always seeking them out. Sophomore year, obviously I feel like I want to do, like have an expectation of myself.
Yeah.
So I kind of roll through that year. I end up second to Sigmund. He beats me pretty close. He beats me 1-0 in the finals. I choose neutral because I always had a problem getting out from him, but he beats me for his 4th. And then that summer, going into my junior year, I go to a local. Well, I guess not a local. It's in Cedar Falls, to the Northern Plains. It was a World Team Trials qualifier, but I just wanted to wrestle some freestyle and just like. And my buddy knew a guy who was on the UNI team, and they're like, "Hey, after this tournament, you can stick around for 2-3 days and train with us." So we went up, and I actually wrestled Sigmund there, and it was the old rules, so I actually beat him like 6-0, and then he beat me 2-0, 2-1.
Oh, wow.
And so then it was like the new rules were just kind of new and fresh. So I was like, oh, I outscored him, you know. So you do that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Where you like rationalize, like, oh, well, I beat him 7-4. You know, it's just he won the weird rules.
Yeah.
'Cause these rules are weird. And then you and I worked out with Tolly Thompson, who was the world team member at the time. In 2006, he beat Mako to make the team. And I worked out with him for a couple of days, and he invited me out to the training center as like one of his workout partners. He's like, I'll get you invited, and you can come to World Team Training Camp.
Wow.
And so that's kind of when I was like, oh, this is cool. Because I mean, when I went out there, it was like the who's who, right? I mean, it was Daniel Cormier, it was Damian Hahn, it was Mo Lawal, it was the Zadok brothers. It was all these guys that are like,
wow.
you know, this is Donnie Pritzlaff. It was all these guys that I'm like, you know, I'm watching on TV.
Yeah.
And it's just everyone. So
How old are you then?
I'm a sophomore, redshirted sophomore. So what was it, 2006? That would have put me like 21,
Okay.
22-ish.
Yeah.
And so I'm all about it.
Yeah.
I'm just like, this is so cool. So you see this, and then the cool thing is in practice, it's like people can have bad days. Like I held my own. You know, like I remember at one practice we did simulation matches, and I rolled up Cormier 6-0, and Kevin Jackson, who's the national team coach, just flipped. And he just yelled at the whole room because he's like, "You gotta be ready. Like this isn't a game." And then he rolled me up after that for the next 2 periods. But it was like I came out, you know, because I'm like, here I go, and he was probably like, whatever. You know, I'm gonna beat him. I'll find a way to beat him. You know, so he was. But it's like so. But for me, it's like that's like it was like, oh my gosh, you know, I'm scoring on him. I'm beating him in a period. I'm doing this, and so stuff like that. So I'm having some good performances, and that's kind of when I was like, okay, I think maybe I want to like try to wrestle, like after college, like internationally.
That's when it first came on the radar. Yeah.
And so junior year, I have a pretty good year. So I take one like double overtime loss to a kid from Harvard in Vegas. But besides that, I won all my other matches. I won Midlands. I beat the guy who won Division Ones in Midlands finals. I beat a bunch of other All-Americans in Division One. I'm pretty much like besides, I never wrestled Cole Conrad, but then by the time it got around to, it was like I had beaten most everyone else. Yeah. Besides Conrad. And I go to the US Open and I get fourth. So I get fourth at the US Open that year. Next year as a senior, I go undefeated and I take third in the Open and I make the University World Team. And then I go over to Greece. I win the University Worlds. And that's kind of like, and then I finish college. So that's my last year of eligibility. And so it was like a trajectory of like each year I would make like a jump into the next level. So it was like, okay, so I can compete at D2 for an All-American. And it's like, okay, I can compete for a D2 national title, you know, maybe like outside the top 10, 12 in Division One. Then it's like, okay, now I'm beating a couple of Division One All-Americans. It's like, okay, well now I beat the Division One champ and I'm third in the Open. Wow. So it was just like each time I just kind of staircase my way up.
Yeah. So you had this success. You decide that you want to go on to the next level. What can you look back? I mean, probably obviously hindsight's 2020, but what contributed to your success? I mean, give me some of those principles that I mean, obviously you were talented, you have some natural giftings, but what actually made you be able to level up like that? I mean, because hopefully there's some young kids listening to this, some coaches listening to this that we can learn from your experience. What were some of those key factors?
I mean, that's the question, right? You're always trying to harness development. It's just a smorgasbord. Right. It's all over the place. Right. But I would say for me, at least how I saw it was, I mean, At first, I was very obsessed. Now, there came a time where that started to hurt me, and I needed to unobsess.
Okay.
But at the beginning, I was obsessed with like just consistency. Where it's like, okay, so how am I going to catch up?
Right.
Right. Because that was my question. Because I was always like, oh, because when I started to get good, I was still like, okay, this is your 4th year wrestling. This is your 5th year wrestling.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, by the time I wrestled Mako in the World Team Trials Finals at 2009 to make my first World Team, 7 years prior was my first year wrestling.
Wow.
And my first year wrestling, he was in the finals of the NCAAs against Tommy Rollins, and they were both in my bracket.
Wow.
So I'm as a first year wrestling, I'm watching Tommy Rollins beat Steve Mako.
Yeah.
7 years later, I win a bracket to make a world team with those guys. Right. So it's like stuff like that is still like the mental part is still like a little bit lagging. The stuff like that was still scary. It was like, dude, I'm not supposed to be beating these guys. Right. So I'm not like this guy walking in like I'm going to kill everybody. Like a lot of my premier wins early were like me not expecting to win.
Yeah.
I was like, I can't beat this guy. And then, I just stay the course. I find a low single. I fight really hard. I just, in the moment, I was able to make good decisions, but it was like, I wasn't this mental juggernaut that was like overcoming these fears. Like I was scared as all get out.
Yeah.
I was like, second is good. Like there's so many times where second was good. And then I just found a way to win. And it was like, phew, that was cool. Right. So it's like, so this whole like idea of like, you got to know you're going to win. Like I find that a little cheesy. Not even cheesy. I find that a little dishonest.
Sure.
Because it's like, how do I know I'm going to win?
Right.
You know, like I had no idea. In fact, there was times where I was okay losing and but as long as I was able to do enough wrestling to win, I won.
Right.
You know, whether or not I thought I would.
Right.
There's plenty of times I surprised myself both ways, right? There's plenty of times where I'm like, I'm going to kill this kid and I didn't.
Right.
There's plenty of times where I'm like, just don't get embarrassed and you can hold your head high and then I found a way.
Yeah. Just stay consistent to your styles, what your plan was, regardless,
just your moves. So for me, it was my catch up plan was this: learn all the moves. I mean, it was like I went videos upon clinics, upon this and questions, and it was constant. It was every move. Yeah. Learn everything that you can. Right. Yeah. That was one of mine. The other one was work. Right. 3 workouts, 4 workouts. It's just, everything, just make everything hard on yourself.
Was it personal? Did you carry a chip? It was like, I'm going to outwork everybody, or was it just, this is what I got to do?
Well, it wasn't like I'm going to outwork. It was like, I got to catch up.
I got to catch up.
I got to catch up. So it's like they have 20 years of work. I got to fit 20 years of work and whatever. So, so it was show up every day. It was, and the one that I necessarily didn't have control. Like this wasn't a decision I made. This was just something that was kind of serendipitous. If not, is I just loved it. Right. So it's like I had this, like, as much as it was I got addicted to the discomfort, the type of stuff. Like I did something very hard, man. Let's do it again. Like, let's try to see, let's see if I can do it harder, better. Let's see if I can do it faster. Let's see if I can take this guy down. Let's see if I can do this. If I could hit this move, if I could diversify that. If I could do, this workout that's even harder than the last workout, if you can make yourself suffer for longer, like.
Was that, when did you find that? Because you told me you're kind of I wouldn't say, you didn't use the word lazy, but you were uninspired as a young man. When was it pretty early in wrestling? Was it
right away?
Right away. So that changed that in you. Right
away. I mean, even before I liked wrestling, I appreciate, like once I got structured work, it was like structured work.
You like that.
I didn't miss a workout.
Yeah.
Whether it was lifting, wrestling, and then once I fell in love with wrestling, it was like, I don't know, but
sure.
Hyperbolically, I never missed an opportunity to learn something.
Right.
It was like, it was to the point where it was just stuff that didn't matter. It's like someone would be like, hey, soda makes you slower. Boom. No more soda. Someone just off the whim said, hey, carbonation makes you slow. And like I heard it, like it wasn't even to me. It was like over here, senior year, carbonation makes you slow. Boom. I didn't drink carbonation till like 4 years ago.
Wow.
Since senior high school.
Wow.
Because it was like something, and it was like, just in case it may. I mean, it may not, but just in case, cut it out.
Yeah.
You know, it was instant. It was like, this is bad for you. It's gone. This is good. It's implemented.
Yeah.
It was like darn near instantaneous for this idea to try to chase down like this performance standard that I was looking for.
Yeah. When I mentioned it before we were recording, but we have a saying, and I'm sure somebody smarter than myself said it first, but how you do anything is how you do everything. Did you buy into that pretty much right away? It's like, did this bleed over to every part of your life?
Yeah. I mean, that's why, my grades got up.
Yeah.
I stopped. I started to respect people because it was like an instant carryover because it was like, okay, I got to respect my coach because he's trying to make me better.
Right.
So it's like, well, I got to respect my teacher because I must, she is a conduit to college.
Right.
Like I must get a good grade. If my GPA doesn't get up, things get weird.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like, so everything became this like through the lens of like, you must find a way to make your dreams come true. Right? You want to do this
for sure.
So then I started to make these, everything started to like chain together, right? Just because like literally, like I wouldn't have said it so eloquently, but that was like the idea. Cause it's like, well, just do it now.
Yeah.
Like stop, like do the homework now. Cause you won't do it.
Right.
Right. Just do it.
Yep.
You know, and it was okay, boom, do that. So it's like, just get up.
Yep.
Like don't hit the snooze. Cause if you hit the snooze, and then you're going to get the practice and you're going to still be sleeping. Like just get up.
Yeah.
Like slap yourself. Just, you know, just do it.
Yeah.
And so it became that kind of thing where it was like instant for school. My parent, it was stuff that like, it was treat my mom better. Wow. Right. She's probably going to be the one paying for my college. Be nicer to her.
Yeah.
Like be grateful. Right. It was instant. It was all these traits.
Sure.
And it was all altruistic things done for a selfish purpose.
That's what I was going to ask. How much of this sport, just in life, how much is it acceptable to be selfish?
I would say way too much. I think that that's something in our sport and probably individual sports in general that's treated like a virtue. We gotta be selfish. You gotta be selfish. And I would say you don't.
Okay.
I don't think you do.
All right.
I think that there is much power to service.
Yeah, for sure.
Right. There's a lot of power to it.
Yeah.
Right. So how, cause a lot of the things that are left off the board that, you know, no one puts their name on the wall for these things, but these things matter in development, right? Developmental milestones, developmental cues, things that develop quickly. I would say, you know, having the ability to not overthink an act of service, right? Well, if I help this person, I'm going to use up some energy and then you won't have that. It's like, no, you won't. What are you talking about? You help your buddy move and now you're going to lose in 2 months. Like, doesn't make any sense. So I think that it ties you down. This idea of selfishness ties you into, and this is where I said there was a time I needed to unobsess.
Yeah.
And this is what I was talking about.
Gotcha.
Because I had bought into this idea where it's like every moment in your life should tie into some kind of betterment for wrestling. And that is how you'll get the most out of wrestling.
Right.
But then it became extremely stressful.
Sure.
Right? The stress, the anxiety. And plus I was tying things to my wrestling that didn't make sense.
Okay.
Right. So it was like, so I developed like, so I was very, and I found out later that it ran in my family, but I developed like a severe case of OCD where I was like touching my nose in 3s and 7s, counting my steps.
Oh, wow.
You know, brushing my teeth in patterns, touching doorknobs a certain way.
Like superstition style or just
straight up
OCD.
obsessive compulsive.
Wow.
Like if I didn't do my compulsion, I would have severe anxiety until I did. And it would just loom over me.
And did you feel like this was you associated to the wrestling as well?
It was everything was will control the uncontrollable, right? It was like I want to be perfect in wrestling.
Right.
So that doesn't exist.
Right.
So what I can do is I can make something up. If I touch this microphone 3 times, I'll win. Oh, that feels better. Right. So everything had to do with a way to ease my mind of the uncertainty of my future.
Wow.
Right. So all of it was tied to that.
Wow.
There was an obsession of a dream. And there was no distinct roadmap. Like, how are you going to, like, if you do XYZ, you'll be an Olympic champ. Like, what's that? That's not a thing.
Right.
So for me, that uncertainty loomed heavy. So I needed to make up a way to fight the anxiety.
Yeah.
And so all of it was made up. It was, my shoes were in a certain pattern, the way I arranged books, shelves, everything was just had some sort of symbolism in my head to either winning, performing, or some type of perfection.
Wow.
But what happened is, yes, does it dial you in? Yes. But it's very incomplete when you get elite.
Right.
So did it help me? Maybe. Because it kept my mind engaged and obsessed on meticulous details.
Right.
But there came a point where I needed to be able to deal with imperfection, and I couldn't. It would kill me. Like I would be in a match and I would shoot a shot and it was imperfect and I would get a takedown and I'm like, you suck. That was so bad. This guy sucks and you couldn't even do the high crotch right. Like, I mean, my mind is going off the rails and I'm winning.
Wow.
Right. So I got to a point where it was just so volatile that I had my epiphany moment where I went to New York Athletic Club Open right after my senior year. So it was 2008, November-ish. And I'm like, if the only reason I'm good at wrestling is because I'm OCD, then I'm done. Like, I can't do it. Like, this is miserable.
Yeah.
Like, I had so many little routines in my warm up that I would exhaust myself. And I'd be like there'd be times where I'm like, I'm not warming up because I have to do all these things, all these little triggers.
Wow.
And so I go to the NYC and I'm like, I pack different socks. I don't bring my normal clothes.
You're purposely putting
I'm like this. We're full send.
Wow.
Like, I got anxiety pouring out of my ears, and I'm like, freaking shut up and take it.
Yeah.
I'm like, if you can't be good under, if the only circumstances you can be good under are these other ones, we're quitting because you can't. That's his miserable life.
Yeah.
And so I go out and I win the tournament, and that's the first time I beat Mako.
Wow.
And he's he was just in the Olympics a couple months ago. I mean, he came up to Northern Iowa and I worked out with him and we wrestled practice and he beat me probably 30-2.
Wow.
And then 2 months later I beat him in a match. And it was like, okay, so that was like not everything was gone.
Yeah.
But at that moment it became, okay, now I see the fight.
Yeah.
So when those compulsions start to tempt, like, it's like, hey, you're very anxious, do this.
Yeah.
Instead of just doing it to relieve my anxiety, I started to go, no, don't do it. It doesn't help you. And it hurts you. It's not a net neutral. It hurts you. You got to stop. And so that became the moment where I started to tear down. And now I'm talking about this. So one critical piece that I want to go back through the whole story that I didn't touch on is when I became a Christian.
Yeah. I was going to ask you when that happened.
Yeah. And so that's kind of the thread in this, because obviously I didn't just like overcome OCD, like white knuckled it, right? Like there was a ton of prayer.
Yeah.
There was a lot of submission.
Sure.
There was, so it wasn't like Tervel Dlagnev, like white knuckled it, I just flexed it out of me, so I don't want it to make it sound like that.
Sure.
Because I understand, like, there's people struggling with that stuff.
Of course.
And it's very difficult.
Yes.
But when I started wrestling, I instantly made up. Well, I got OCD right away. Because again, it was this thing I wanted to win so bad.
Yeah.
And there was no guarantee. So I had to make up my own guarantees, right?
Yeah.
So right away, I made up my own God, right? It was just like, I'm going to start treating people better.
Yeah.
I'm going to be nice to people, helpful when I can. I'm going to stop cussing. I cussed a lot.
Billy.
I cold turkey cussing.
Yeah.
Just no more.
Yeah.
We're not going to talk like that. Just all that stuff. And I said, okay, so in return, you will help me win wrestling matches. Right. So that was my agreement with my made up God. Right.
Sure.
And so it was all well and good until I lost.
Yeah.
And then I would just cuss. And then I'd kind of bring myself back down. And then we'd renegotiate contract and then we'd go on. But it's like, so So when I Fargo my senior year, a friend of mine, Keegan Mueller, who wrestled in North Carolina, he shared the gospel with me. At the time, I was raised an atheist.
Yeah.
So there was no faith. My dad was, you make fun of the church. They just want your money, blah, blah, blah. So I got a lot out of feeling cool that I was like the one kid in the Bible Belt who was an atheist, right? Because in Texas, I'm not saying everyone's an authentic Christian.
Sure, but there's a lot.
Everyone's a nominal Christian.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I was like, what? Or like, no, like you might be, whatever. You might be, drugs and prostitutes, but you're still Christian, right?
Absolutely.
So it's like, so I'm not saying that everyone is submitted to the Lord,
of course,
but no one doesn't believe God exists, right?
Yeah, right.
So for me, I was like, God, they made him up, right? That's made up.
Yeah. Were you prideful about that?
I was very prideful. Yeah. I mean, I was, like I said, I was always kind.
Sure.
So I never picked fights.
Right. But you were willing to defend.
But I definitely thought that I had outsmarted those stupid Christians. All right.
Gotcha.
They're a bunch of sheep.
Yeah.
Following some ghosts.
Right.
And so for me, so going into college, the first couple of friends I made were Christians, and they invited me to a Bible study. And at this point, from Fargo, when I heard the gospel and my friend's testimony, to first year of college, so I'm very introspective. And what was happening in my brain was I felt like dual realities, right? So I felt like there was a person who I was trying to portray. Mm-hmm. There's a reputation that I was trying to portray to the world.
Right.
And then there was a character that I didn't like.
Okay.
And there was a man that was scared, fearful, right? And it started with this idea of like confusing about wrestling, because it's like I loved practice, I loved work, nervous wreck on competition day.
Right. Yeah.
So I was like, why am I so scared? I love the sport, but it's terrifying on game day.
Yeah.
Terrifying.
Yeah.
Miserable to the point where it's like, let's get this tournament over with so we can get back to practice.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of wrestlers like that.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I just think that it's and it can be as severe or as little. Everyone, it's in there, right? I mean, nerves are there.
But when it's debilitating like that.
Yeah, when it's like just anxiety to the point where you're like, man, I'm just a different person in competition.
Yeah, yeah.
And I experienced a lot of that. And so that was my first. And then it was just other stuff where it's like, I'm, like my first thought or things I say or just who I am in my brain. I'm like, oh man, like what? This is bad. Like I'm just a bad person. And you realize that about yourself.
Yeah.
And you're like, I'm kind of a scumbag. And so, and obviously you have the general rationalizations. Well, I'm not as bad as blank, right?
Of course.
But for me, I was just like, this is bad. So I got invited to some Bible studies, some wrestling teams, like Campus Navigators was doing a Bible, this guy, Rob Clark was doing a Bible study for us. And a couple of the upperclassmen invited us, and I'm going, and we talk. We're going through, some of Paul's letters, and he's just kind of describing the nature of a man and the necessity for a savior. And I'm thinking, and I'm going through this, going like, wow, that's like that's if it like I haven't experienced my faith very supernaturally. Like I've most of my faith has been intellectual. Gotcha. But if there was a supernatural moment in my faith, it was that moment where it was like this book is coming at me.
Right.
Like it's cutting at me.
Yeah. Yeah. For sure.
Like how, like this crazy, know? And so I had this moment where it's like so yes, there's something wrong, but it seems like I'm not the only one. Right. And so I kind of dive in there. And so that first year, I mean, my OCD kind of carried into my faith where it was like, I mean, I did like 6 altar calls. Everyone was like, do you want Jesus to do this? And I'm like, let's run. I mean, I did it last week, but let's run it back, So I OCD'd that too. Yeah. And it was a slog, but I definitely, that first year I gave my life to the Lord. And that was always kind of, I mean, sports in general, but I think like combat, like just the fears of wrestling, right? It's combat, it's individual, it's scary. It's just, there's a lot to it.
Yeah.
And it's constant, and you get to, so many times a year you have to put it on the line, and it's one of those things where I was like, yeah, I mean, I kind of, there was a lot of humility, right?
Yeah.
And so you kind of submit this part of it where you're like, gosh, and not to be said, like, again, I was OCDing my life away in college, but I was trying to see it through the lens of, Christ and his love for me, but also just the standard, right? The standard of, being okay with not having control of your future, like trusting God that He's in control. Those things are important. And so that's kind of the faith thread that was kind of stringing this out. And when it came to a head, and through a lot of prayer of me being like, Lord, I can't sustain this stuff.
Yeah.
It's like, this is eating at me. It's miserable. Like I love wrestling, but not what it's become.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And it kind of comes to head there in New York after your senior year. You're in this incredible tournament, and you just kind of laid it out there and just tested where you would be without your control, and it worked out.
Yeah. And obviously that's great feedback. Like that's not, it's kind of like, I don't always like the perfect story.
Sure.
Because not everyone can fit that.
Absolutely.
Right. Because there's so many people that get broken down, through different circumstances. Like mine was like, I had the instant feedback
right.
of like, hey, you can do this without the OCD.
Right.
So that helped. Right. Like if I would have lost, who knows where my mom would have been like, I knew it.
Right.
I stink without my nose touches or without my whatevers, So I had and obviously everything is, I trust in the sovereignty of God, but that was a very manageable lesson for me at the time with how immature my mind was. It's very manageable.
Sure. And now you said that, not obviously don't always work out, but we know wrestlers, we know people that in combat sport and stuff like that, they deal with this anxiety, these fears and stuff like that. And just in life, I mean, as a husband, I do, as a dad, I do. If you've obviously been through this, I'm not saying that you're, a certified psychologist or something like that you're going to sit here and tell us everything, but what would you say would be some good tools for people, wrestlers, whatever, to kind of help manage that?
Well, first I would, so this is why I think wrestling, this is why I think everyone should wrestle.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'll this is the long-winded version.
That's fine.
Because I think I want to lay the groundwork
Sure.
of the answer to this question, but I think everyone should wrestle because it seems to be, now I don't know I haven't experienced every sport, but out of the main combat sports, right? Boxing, jiu-jitsu, MMA, wrestling. It seems to be the only one that has the volume so it's combat, it's individual, so it's more intense than jiu-jitsu. It's more the volume of the highest intensity of your sport is more than MMA and boxing. Like you have to spar in MMA.
Right.
Because if I knock my partner out, practice is over.
That's right. Yeah.
Same with boxing.
Yep.
There's an element of like, I'm sure you can ramp up and down, but you cannot go as hard as you can.
Right.
Like the only time boxers and MMA fighters go as maximum is game day.
That's right.
That's the only time.
Yeah.
You can't do it in practice.
Right.
You have to find a way to compartmentalize moments and snapshots of your sport.
Yeah.
Or else you run out of partners.
That's right.
Because if you're just beating everyone up, or you yourself get knocked
That's
out.
right.
And then it's like, well, practice is over till my concussion's over or whatever. It's like 2 weeks. So you must find a way. There's a more, and then jiu-jitsu in and of itself is more relaxed.
Yeah.
But wrestling, every single day, you're on a wrestling mat for the most part, right? This is hyperbole again, but just about every single practice, you will go as hard as you can. You will go live.
Yeah.
Like it's a competition. Live intensity more than any competition that you actually go to.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
So let's say I get 3 matches in. Okay, there's 18 minutes in practice, 30 minutes.
That's right.
4 days a week.
Yep.
I
Easily.
mean, like you're getting like you're touching the maximum of your sport every day, over and over to infinity.
yeah. Yeah.
There's just nothing like that.
That's right. Yeah.
And so with that comes a lot of this stuff,
Yeah.
right? So you have the idea that your performance swings, right? I beat him yesterday. How did he beat me today? Did I get worse? Oh no.
Right.
Oh no, now I'm bad, right? Or it's
Right.
like, well, no, it's just I had a bad night's sleep. No, I got worse.
Right.
Oh, things are falling apart, right? So you have the performance management. You know, eventually if you wrestle someone long enough, the performance will break down.
Right.
You know, even if you're quote unquote better,
Yeah.
you're going to eventually give up a takedown or even lose to someone that you don't usually lose to.
Yeah.
And there's a mentality in that.
Sure.
There's body breakdown. There's all kinds of stuff. And so with that, I would say everyone should wrestle because wrestling is like a thermos. So I actually say life. So I think of life like a thermos that you can't see what's in it. Mm-hmm. And your life is water. Mm-hmm. So you pour a bunch of water in this thermos. So you know there's water in there. That's your life. And there's also a bunch of dirt. And the dirt in the water is everything you don't like about yourself. Mm-hmm. You know, cowardice, pride, you know, whatever. It could be outside of wrestling. It could be inside of wrestling. Mm-hmm. It could be, you know, procrastinator. It could be whatever.
Right.
And all the bad things about you. Well, what happens to water with dirt, if it sits idle for long enough, all the dirt goes to the bottom, like ridiculously so, to the point where you can have crystal clean water and all the dirt, right? So there's never like flow, like if you wait long enough. And so most things in life, I would say your life just sits there, right? It's mundane.
Yep.
So you sip off the top and you get this thermos and you sip it and you go, my life's good. I don't need to change. I don't need to change. Right. You know, boss yelled, I overreacted, you know, wife, I was a little irritable cause you know, dinner wasn't ready when I need, but life's good.
Yeah.
You know, I'm fine.
Yeah.
You know, those things are just one-offs.
Yep.
Well, what happens in life and it'll happen to everyone as little or as big, it will happen and it will happen often. The thermos will shake.
Yeah.
Right. So something in your life, usually it's the things that aren't under your control that you don't wish upon, right? It's like, well, you know, the big ones would be like, hey, your son's going to Afghanistan.
Right.
Right. Or, hey, doctor called.
Yeah.
You should probably come in for this.
Right.
You know, or, hey, Jimmy, I know he didn't come home last night. We found a car, you know, it hit a tree.
Yeah.
You know, I got some bad news. Yeah. Right. So, I mean, these things that shake your life.
Yeah.
And then you take a swig and what is that?
Yeah.
That's not my life.
Right.
Like all these emotions, this embitterment, this fear, all this stuff comes out when something shakes your life. Well, the cool thing about wrestling is it feels like life and death.
Yes.
But it's not.
It's not.
It's not.
Yep.
Like when I lost in the Olympic semifinals in London, I couldn't have emotionally been more sad.
Right.
Like I could have walked off the mat and you could have said, hey, by the way, your mom died.
Right.
And I could have been more sad.
Yeah,
I was maximum sad. Now, am I glad that someone didn't die? I just lost a wrestling match.
Right.
Yes. Like it eventually went away.
Right. But in the moment.
But in the moment, I was at maximum sad capacity.
Yeah.
It felt like you could have told me anything.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. Like you got a life-threatening disease.
Right.
You know, whatever. So,
Right.
So that's what's crazy is like we're in this like bizarre microcosm. It's very safe, but it seems dangerous.
Yeah.
It's like if you don't win, you're worthless.
Yeah.
But it's like that's not real life, but that's how we feel. And
Sure.
it feels like life and death. And so once you're in it, every day you're on a wrestling mat, if it matters to you. Now, I'm not saying like if you wrestle like pickup wrestling. Like
Right.
if I go play pickup basketball, I don't care.
Right.
But I'm sure like if Steph Curry's playing basketball, he's like it's in his identity.
It's personal.
It's personal,
Yeah.
right? So when wrestling becomes your thing, every day your thermos is in a constant shake.
Yeah.
And then you sip, there's dirt, wasn't tough enough, wasn't strong enough, wasn't conditioned enough. My attitude broke. I was soft. I put
Right.
my head down. I mean, it's something that's change more.
Yeah.
You didn't do not enough. Wasn't your mind, your body. You weren't connected. slow, bad decisions, right?
Yeah.
You know, it even seeps out, right? Terrible choice last night to stay up and play video games, right? Not to have breakfast,
Right.
right? Not to drink water,
Yeah.
not to rehydrate,
Yep.
right? Go freaking carousing with your friends instead of taking a day off when you know the next day was going to be hard, right? So it seeps in, and it's a constant state of change this, change that, and it doesn't force you to change, but it reveals.
Sure.
It plasters it on a wall very clear. This needs to change. This needs to change. If you change it, things might be different. If you don't, same man.
Yeah.
And if you don't like it, you're going to keep sipping dirt.
Yeah.
And so with that, wrestling shouldn't get to the place where it rocks you, but with enough of this, with enough shaking of the thermos, when a big uncontrollable shaking comes, you have had enough reps
Yeah.
in disruption of your life, in discomfort, and in things going ways that you didn't plan to at least give yourself a viable option to try and slog your way out. Like, I'm not saying it's like, oh, I wrestled, so when my mom dies,
Right.
I'm gonna play video games. It's not that. It's not that.
Yeah.
But what it is if my friend commits suicide, I don't do it with him.
Right.
It's enough to be like, I'm broken. Let's get better.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let's do better, right? If something happens and I don't get the job, let's get better.
Yeah.
Not let's get drunk.
Right.
Not let's spiral and feel sorry for ourselves, because no one did it.
That's right.
So as a it's a small niche sport that offers you this baseline feedback loop of something that can be incredibly valuable for everyone's life.
Yeah.
And so that's like my idea, like why everyone should try it. Like everyone should have to wrestle. It doesn't have to be, but for 1 year, 2 year, learn to suffer,
Yeah.
learn to overcome it,
Yeah.
touch it. And then it might not be your thing.
Absolutely. No, I love that. I love that analogy. I know I had Johnny DeGilius on here, and he was quoting you a lot. He says, I stole everything from him. He said, but he's like, I think he might have touched on that a little bit, but I love what you're saying there because it's so true. And I had brought up to him, and I brought up in a lot of these podcasts, is because obviously I have a theory that, and I'm sure you agree, is that you can get better at suffering. You know, and it's because of that, you know, Tom Ryan's chosen suffering and things of that nature. But like you're saying, it's like when you're faced with it on a regular basis, it's not going to be, as you said, easy, but certain things become a little familiar. And it's like, I know the next step.
Yes.
Like that hurts real bad, but on the mat, this is what I did. The next step's all I need. And I feel like in our world right now, there's so many people suffering. And all they really want, and they want hope, you know. In our faith is what's hoped for yet not seen. That's what's missing in a lot of people's life, is that hope. In wrestling, if you lose hope or you lose that thing, the only place you can live in is despair and fear, you know. And I think it's true in life as well.
Absolutely.
And so I agree 100%. And so you're saying that's how you should manage this stuff is allow yourself to be shaken, you know, not like you said, not rattled to the point where it's unbearable, but shaken daily so that we can get better at it.
Well, so I would say that was the groundwork.
Yeah.
Now to answer your question.
Yeah.
How? What are some practical? Okay, so
Right.
you told me this cool story about a thermos. Now what? Right. So you have these events. So you must set a clear standard, and you must believe in a clear standard outside of distress.
Right.
Right. So it's like, who do you want to be?
Right.
Right. The best time to set a who do you want to be is when there's no distress. That's when you think you're clearest.
Right.
Because if I put a ton of distress on you, you will tap out.
Right.
So you must set a standard of who you want to be while you're eating potato chips on a sunny day.
Right.
Right? That's like, who do you want to be? Well, I want to be a person who manages my stress.
Right.
I want to be a person who's in control of my mind. I want to be a person who can flood my mind with positivity. I want to be a person who doesn't overreact. I want to be a person who listens instead of talks. I want to be a person, right? So these attributes, and then it's like, I want to be a tough person. I want to never quit. I might fail, but I won't quit. You know, I want to be a person who never loses anything in their life because of lack of effort.
Right.
Like I will never lose an opportunity because of lack of effort. Like whatever it is for you, right? It doesn't have to be the same. But you draw up your standard. And now you start to sprinkle on discomfort. Okay, how did you, okay, well, no, this broke down, that broke down. Okay. But too many people at this moment change their standard.
Right.
Instead of adapt.
Yeah.
There's, adapt. But it's like, okay, well, maybe, so you have to have a very clear standard. And when you start to go forward, you go forward with honesty.
Yeah.
With extreme honesty. I think that platitudes, t-shirt slogans, and faking reality doesn't do that much good.
Right.
Right. So this idea where it's like my life is going to get better. Is it?
Right.
Because it just went really bad.
Yeah.
You sure it's going to get better? Like it might not. Like,
Right.
like at least not in the foreseeable future or whatever. So it's like these champions find a way. Like, do they?
Right.
I mean, yes. I mean, that seems obvious because yes, the person who wins found a way.
Right.
But it's like, so are you not a champion?
Right.
Like, or you're a champion last week and not this? I mean, it's these slogans that are like meant to like invigorate and inspire, but really nothing past it. And so I think that honesty is dealt a bad hand in our sport because you're not supposed to say you're scared. You're not supposed to say, you're supposed to say, are you ready? Absolutely. This is guy good. No, he's not. I got him. I'm the go, and it's like, no. It's very healthy to understand that you're going to do something hard.
Right.
What's being asked of you? Hey, something in your life went really bad. Hold it together. That's hard ask. That's a very hard ask. You ask a person that, you must respect what you just asked them. You have to.
Yeah, that's it.
Because I think and this is where coaching, it's like so many coaches, just even, this is the wrestling example, open up. Are you kidding? Have you ever wrestled?
Right.
You know how hard it is to open up?
Right.
What do you mean open up?
Yeah.
Like that's different. But it's like you cannot matter of fact the difficulty of things you're expecting out of this person.
Right.
But if you meet them and say, listen, not a lot of people can do what I'm about to ask you to do. But it's the right thing to do.
Yeah.
And if you can do it, you will see things a lot more clearly.
Yeah.
And so with this, it comes, you have a standard. As you sprinkle on distress, you start to learn more about yourself. This is where it breaks down. These are my cues. When this happens, this breaks down. When this happens, that doesn't go well. And then you start to flood your mind with positive self-talk, but like real life positive. So like, not like I'm the best, things are going to go well. And like, I'm going to be on the podium and, I'm going to get the job. I'm going to be a billionaire in 5 years. Like not that kind of stuff.
Right.
But like fight.
Yeah.
In this moment, it's worth the effort. Like you not lashing out in anger in this moment will make you a tougher man. You not putting your head down. You can't see the light at the end of the tunnel. You not putting your head down is worth it. It's worth your time. It's worth your effort. It's worth everything in this moment. Doesn't matter the result. It's your choice is worth everything in this moment.
Yeah.
And if you can get a person to be addicted to the self-improvement of a process, that's where the magic is.
Yeah.
Right. You get them to learn to talk to themselves. You get to learn what's on repeat in their brain. Is it keep going or is it tap out?
Yeah.
Right. Like what's going through the brain? What are they saying in their voice? Right. Is it, David Goggins' voice in your head or is it your voice?
Right.
Like eventually you should draw inspiration, but eventually that inspirational statement, you should hear it in your own voice.
That's true.
It should eventually convert into, you telling me
That's right.
You're the man or you can do this to me telling me I can do it, to me believing it. Because eventually if I don't own it, it's just, there will be a discomfort enough for me to abandon it.
Sure.
He was lying.
Yeah. Yeah.
I can't do it.
Yeah. Say, can you truly believe something that you haven't internalized? I don't think so. I don't, that, and I guess that's a question I have for you as well is how much, or first, is the person that's in distress or in the fire, is that a true measure of who you really are? Or is it the person that is going through, in eating the potato chips in the sunshine? Which one is more of a scope of someone's inner self, the distress or the person that's in comfort? I
mean, 100% distress, right?
Yeah.
It's just important to when you're building this,
Yeah.
it's important because the dreamer is on the couch,
Right.
right? The gladiator's in the arena,
Yeah.
but the dreamer's on the couch. When the gladiator is getting arrows flung at them, they'd rather not be there.
Yeah, that's right.
But right? So the person in the national finals who's up by 1 and is exhausted, and then their opponent just got in on their leg,
Yeah.
would rather not be there.
Yeah.
The person on the couch watching the match, drinking a soda, is going, one day, I want to be there.
Yeah, that's right.
Right? One guy doesn't want to, the gladiator doesn't want to be in the arena.
Right.
The fans dreamily were like, I can do that.
Yeah.
Right? They both have their place.
Sure.
I think if you put someone in the hardest situation of their life and say, who do you want to be? They would say, anyone but me.
Right, yeah.
Anyone but me.
Yeah.
So I don't think I don't think that's realistic.
Right.
They are both skewed.
Right.
One thinks that he's better than he is, and one has a self grandeur that's not realistic, and one has a self loathing or just a fear that's not realistic.
Right.
And so you must have a standard while you're dreaming.
That's right.
And then now when we bang our head, when we match up, that's our litmus test, right?
Yeah.
So, okay, so how close did you get to this?
Right.
Because I think it's healthy to try to be really good at everything.
Yeah, I agree.
I think it's healthy to try and be elite.
Yeah.
I think it's healthy to, even if it's not, so we don't have enough units for everything to be everything to us.
Right.
Right. It's like, okay, well, between wrestling and I play the occasional video game. So I want to be the best in the world at video games. I do like to play racquetball every now and again. So now I'm gonna try to be the best in the world at racquetball. It's like, you don't have enough for that.
Right.
But I do think that if you get good enough at one thing, the trickle off should be, I should be above average in
That's
everything.
right. Yeah.
I should never be anything that I do,
Yeah.
that I reproduce. I should never be a C.
Right.
A B- at minimum,
Yeah.
hopefully a B.
Right.
Right. And then that's a trickle down.
Yeah.
So when you have this standard in the form of the thing that you value, your identity, and for us, it's wrestling in the moment. And then one day, if we're men, and I'll generalize it, if we're men, it's how much money do you make, right? That's the eventual measure of a man, right? So in wrestling, it's how many medals do you win, but eventually we'll all retire, and the question will be how much money is in your bank account.
Yeah.
If you have more money than me, you're a better man. You're a better man. If I have less money, I'm an inferior man to you. It's bank accounts. And if you're a woman, for the most part, it's image, right? If you have more beauty than me, you're a better woman, right? So that's the compartment. I mean, obviously there's it branches,
right?
There's but for the most part, I think that's biblical,
right?
I think that love your wife, respect your husband. Like there's a level to
difference.
Like when the man is respected, he feels alive.
Yeah.
When the woman is loved,
That's right.
she feels alive, right? So I think that the perversion of the world is this: you're too ugly to be loved. You're too unsuccessful to be respected.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I think that's where this all goes.
Yeah.
You must allow. So while you're in the microcosm of a sport, and that's why I think sports in general are amazing. And that's why when people, during the COVID stuff, it drove me crazy when people, it would be like, we got to get back to sports. And then people would be like, what are you talking about? People are dying. Sport. You're talking about throwing a football.
Yeah.
It's like, no.
Yeah. It's more.
It's hope.
Yeah, that's it.
It's this.
That's it.
It's this life and death out there,
Yeah.
right? But it's like, it's purpose. And so sports can get you to learn how to detach from the status quo.
Sure.
The status quo, if you autopilot your life, it'll look like this. Were you good in sports as a kid? Are you rich as an adult?
That's right.
That's the autopilot.
Yep.
Right? Sports will test you and say, okay, you lost. Are you a failure? Are you a failure? No. Not necessarily.
No. Yeah.
Right? Or you won. Are you better than everyone?
That's right.
Not necessarily.
That's right.
Like if I win, that just means I'm better at wrestling.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean I can treat you like less of a human. I got 3 world medals. What do you got? go get me some water. What? Like that doesn't give me the right, and it never should in any circumstance of life, even in wrestling.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And if I fail or if I lose, that should also not attach to me.
Yeah.
This is something I do, not who I am.
Right.
All these other little things are who I am. Right. How did you deal with it? How did you deal with the stress response? How did you treat this situation? How quickly were you able to react? How much of your life did you dedicate? How much did you suffer? How well did you suffer? Like all these things, how much courage could you employ? This was a scary moment. Could you activate courage, or did you leave it in the closet? All that stuff. It matters. And so I think sports is the safest way to get people to break out of the status quo.
Right.
Because sports will make you feel like you're nothing.
Yeah.
It can.
You can, yeah.
But with this situation, it's like with enough of that and the recall, it's like you're nothing, but we need you Saturday again to play. Yeah. But you still suck, but we need you next Saturday. It's like with enough of that, you eventually go, you know what? Just because I lose doesn't mean I stink.
Yeah.
Like there's levels to this.
That's right.
So I think that's extremely important to understand when talking about sports and our culture, and the opportunity you get is you don't ever want to get in a place where wealth rules your identity. Because one, it'll never be enough.
That's right.
If you have enough, so right there's kind of a line where it's like once you pass this line, you like how wealthy you are, so you just accumulate and you ignore, and your family goes to crap, and it's nothing, and you're miserable, but you accumulate, because respect, and look at this bank account, and then if you're under the line, am I enough?
Right.
Does my wife?
Yeah.
Is this? Am I providing enough? Oh man, this is embarrassing. Are people look? Oh
yeah.
My kids' shoes, my house, my this, right? So it's just. There's no way to live like in your own head well,
right? If
wealth is your God, it just doesn't exist, right?
No, I think even scientifically they said something like $70,000-$80,000 is the line of happiness, something like that. It's really odd to think about, but they say after that it rapidly degrades in your joy.
Isn't that fascinating?
Yeah, it is.
I have heard that.
It's wild, because I mean, just sitting here, I'm like, man, I'd love to have just millions would be great, because I don't want to think about it no more. But I believe in what you're saying there is obviously I think that money and those things just amplify the person that you are already. So there's a lot of people that are miserable that end up with money, and it just amplifies that, and then there's obviously generous people that get wealthy, and it amplifies that. But more than not, most people that are seeking that have this, like you said, this imposter syndrome mentality, and they're hurting internally. So as they get more, they just want to accumulate more so they can get past what they're feeling that they'll never get past by looking at money,
That's a good picture.
Yeah. So, I like that. And I do think that sports play such a massive role and obviously I'm biased towards wrestling because it does put us in these positions and that we can daily inventory this stuff. In the sport of wrestling, or just in general in life, how much fear is acceptable?
Unpack that.
So for me, fear and faith are the same thing, just beliefs in different outcomes, right? So the word says that faith is what's hoped for yet not seen, and fear is what we hope doesn't happen, but it's yet still unseen. So the exact same thing, but the belief system at the end of what we want and don't want are obviously opposites. And so we're living in one or the other constantly, in my opinion. My marriage, my children, my success in my business, I'm living in faith or fear at any given point in time. I know that there's always this metric of you're 75%, 25%. You're always oscillating between the two. For me, and I will just say, when I'm in fear, I'm living in some sort of lack. I'm losing hope. I'm afraid something that I don't want is going to happen. So for me, it's such a limiting thing. So even on the mat and stuff like that, when I would wrestle fearful, I would always be thinking about what I didn't want to happen. I was afraid to take the shot because I didn't want to get scored on. It was always the antithesis that I was believing versus the hope that I'm going to win the match. I'm going to score. So for me, it was I have to lean towards more the hope, or literally I become paralyzed to the fear. I just wanted to curious if you had any theories on fear and faith and things in that when it comes to the mat and plus just in life.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's for me, it ebbs and flows, right? I mean, I don't know. It's a tough one because I don't think you can get rid of someone's fear, but I do think you can make someone more courageous.
Okay.
Right. So I think that too many people try to convince you not to be fearful.
Right.
I would rather attack it from those are viable fears.
Sure.
But there's a virtue called courage. And what courage does is it faces them.
Right.
It doesn't avoid them, right? So I think that making someone braver or more courageous is the attack point of fear.
Good.
It's not like, what do you mean? What are you worried about?
Yeah.
What do you mean? What am I worried about?
Right.
Like like it's my business.
Yeah.
What do you mean? What am I worried about? It's like, no, it's viable.
Viable. Yeah.
But like, let's rationally think about this. Is it helping? Right. And are you, is it paralyzing you? Cause now you're stuck. So I think with fear comes this approach of this opportunity to do something very hard.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think that presented with that, I think pride works. I think it's better to come at pride through a back door. Right. So I think silver platter seems to feed fear.
Right.
Right. So encouragement sometimes.
Yeah.
Not everyone's the same. I'm kind of grouping, so everything I say isn't obviously like stamped onto every single, but
it's your experience.
For the most part, I would say what I've experienced is if you say, man, you're the best, you're going to win. I made you scared.
Right.
Because I said, well, coach thinks I'm going to win. What if I don't?
Yeah.
Is he going to be disappointed? Because he's wrong.
Yeah.
He sees this in me. I'm going to live up to it. But if I say, wow, you got a heck of a task in front of you. Do you think you can win?
Right.
And it's almost like, what do you mean? Like you come at a man's pride, like, oh, what do you mean? Like, absolutely, like, bring it.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like you invite a challenge, right? There's a curiosity to it. And so it's not like I think a lot of encouragement in sport is anxiety relief for the encourager.
That's true.
Right. I think a lot of coaches and a lot of parents come up and say, hey, the better wrestler, you're the better wrestler.
Yeah.
I just lost. What is that?
Yeah.
What? So should his coach say you stink because you won? Like he just won. Why would you say that?
Yeah.
But I think it's this. You want to basically the message is this. I still think you're good.
Right. Yeah.
I still think you're good. But that sounds a little cheesy. So you say something really cool that you think is like, and then everyone's anxiety goes down.
Yeah.
So okay. So coach still thinks I'm good. Phew. And then coach says, okay, he smiled. He's not depressed. Good. I've done my job. And we walk away. And then next weekend we're the same man. But if you say, we got to change. We got to change. You can be different next week. You can be different. But we must change.
Yeah.
Not enough courage.
Yeah.
Right. Honesty. Right. And so for whatever it is, you didn't take enough risk.
Yeah.
Right. You weren't prepared enough. Not enough courage. You didn't do any moves. I can't diagnose the match.
Yep.
What should I have done? Anything. You didn't do anything. Like go lose.
Right.
Go lose at wrestling.
Yeah.
Don't go do nothing.
Yeah.
Right. So I think that with fear and I think your balance of fear and faith is absolutely the case. And I think that there are times where it's easier to have faith. And I think there's times where it's more likely you'll be fearful. And I think perspective matters. I think that pendulum is different for everyone.
Sure.
I think some people can go, man, that's just great, on a situation that might break someone.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that's great. And I think that God and time spent in his word and changing and transforming your mind is the only way to gain ground on that.
Yeah, for sure.
But the fear itself, I think that God can push your faith metric bigger and push out your fear. But at any moment, if you're living in the fear, in that moment, you cannot get rid of the fear.
Right.
You must attack the fear with courage.
That's right.
And the greater your fear experience, the more you need to understand that that's a greater opportunity to access courage.
Yeah.
Right. If you're not afraid at all, you can access no courage.
Right.
If you're afraid 100% with 100% of your being, then you must access 100% courage.
Yeah, it's true.
50, 70, 30, right?
Yep.
Anywhere in between. If I'm a little nervous, a little courage is necessary. If I'm extremely scared, a lot of courage, right? And so I think that that's a cool metric
Yeah.
to challenge people is this. Don't you think being a courageous person is something to be valued?
Yeah.
And if you say yes to that, because you want then now we're back in the arena.
That's it.
Right? So that was the dreamer talking.
Yep.
Now we're in the arena.
Yeah.
When I tell you, don't listen to that social media post. It's not true. Do you trust me?
Right.
When I tell you, you're not a failure because you just lost. Do you trust me? Does your mind go to whatever, or do you actually go, is that what you're saying to yourself?
Right.
Or am I just in one ear and out the other?
Right.
Because those are the things that are going to change your perspective on your state.
Yeah, for sure. I like that. Yeah. And I love your take on courage, because I think every man, and again, I'm generalizing, but we have a desire to be courageous. It's built into us. It's part of our DNA, and again, in order to be courageous, like you said, there has to be fear, and I remember, I've talked to a lot of wrestlers and talked to Johnny that jumps off buildings and cliffs and things. And he told me every time he's scared, but that's why he does it, because he wants that opportunity to be courageous, to fight back fear. And I think that's all of us. I think if we're all honest, I think we, in every area of our life, we have some sense of fear. Being married, scary. Being a father's extremely scary. Being a coach, being a wrestler, being a business person, there is always this sense. There is a fear, but for the man that wants to be the warrior, which I would argue every man has a war they need to rage. That's the opportunity. And I think if we do that as our species and our gender, again, I'm generalizing, but I think you see a lot more positive and a lot more hope instilled in people, because it does something to you. When you face fear and you find that courage, it does something to you. I've seen it in young men and young women and all across the board. When you face those fears, it changes you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a power to it. And the cool thing is this, it's not like a one and done.
Yeah.
But what it is once you do it once, you desire it.
Yeah.
You desire that feeling again.
Yeah.
Like when you overcome something difficult, like that's why there's lunatics that are running 100-mile races.
Yeah.
Because it's like, how do I suffer more?
Yeah.
And then they do it with a backpack.
Yeah.
And then they do it, in a snowstorm.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, there's an addiction to overcoming hard things once you do it, right? And there's levels to that statement, but within the thing that's pulling on your identity, when you overcome something that's trying to take your identity, whether it's even internal, whether it's even in your brain,
right?
Like just a person where, like, I have extreme anxiety and I talk myself out of it.
Yeah.
Like just that is like so noble, and worthy to be cherished, because it's like, what is life if not the search for contentment? Right? I mean, it's like if someone is content, isn't that the purpose? Or maybe not the purpose, but isn't that the goal? Like, I know happy, but it's like, if you're content, what can you add to a content man? Yeah, right. So it's but contentment is not a circumstance.
Yes, and it's not complacency either.
It's not complacency.
But a lot of us settle for complacency because of lack of imagination, or just boredom, or feeling stuck. But that contentment it's biblical.
It's biblical, and I would say the difference is one's still anxious. Complacency is fear with a different name. Yeah. Right? Complacency is this: I can't, so I won't.
Yeah.
So that's right?
That's
So
good.
Complacency isn't, I don't want it.
Right.
Because if it was free and easy, you want it.
That's right.
But it's, nah.
Yeah.
And then I'll just do something and then I'll numb the pain.
Yeah.
I'll numb it with whatever. I'll numb it with alcohol. I'll numb it with Netflix.
Right.
I'll numb it with distractions. That's complacency.
Yeah.
Complacency is a series of distractions.
Yep.
To help unfocus the fact that you don't have those things.
Yeah.
Contentment is actually being okay with what you got.
Yeah, that's right.
And as you grow and gain something, you experience gratitude.
Yeah, that's a superpower.
And when something's taken away, you can let it go.
That's right.
And that's contentment. And so I think that's where the older I've gotten, I think that's like someone that exudes contentment is like, that's probably like the thing I get most jealous of.
Yeah.
Because it's like, there's so many things I want to do and accomplish. And it's like, what if I didn't want any of it?
Yeah.
Like how freeing would that be? Like how cool would it be if I didn't care what anyone thought?
Yeah.
And I was okay with my career,
Yes.
the amount of money I made, and I still, but I loved it to the point where I still did it really well.
Yep.
And I still tried to level up.
Yeah.
But when I didn't get a raise, I was fine. And when I did get a raise, I was also fine.
Yeah.
And I wasn't working hard for a raise. I was working hard for love. What a life. Because it doesn't, you can literally be a janitor. You could do anything. You can be anyone, anywhere at any time. With contentment, you wouldn't want to be anywhere else.
That's right. But the world, it's so countercultural, right? Everything's pushing us bigger, better, or not enough.
Yeah.
You're on one side of the spectrum of it. I sometimes to my wife, I'm caught between wanting millions of dollars or wanting to disappear with her and never worry about another dollar. And I think the latter, I find more contentment. It's just the hustle and the chase is so inviting because it seems like a challenge. Mm-hmm. It's part of, but again, if you're content with the challenge and that's what you want, then that's one thing. But I'm such a torn person because, just, living in my RV with my wife, traveling, doing whatever we want to do sounds so great, but also just hustling and getting after it and seeing what you can accomplish does as well at times, so you're stuck in the middle of these two polar opposite things. But I think there's a lot of people that way, but there's also a lot of people who just don't know how to start, they just feel an emptiness on the inside. And I think that's probably the true pandemic of the world right now is the lack of hope,
Yeah. And the problem is, that's a pretty arrogant statement. I know the problem. No, no, but I would say like one of the problems is the prescription for lack of hope is become a victim.
Yes.
Well, it's not. You don't have hope because of you.
Right.
It must be someone else's fault.
Yes.
Who's holding you down?
And that takes all your power away.
All your power.
Every bit of it.
Instantly.
Yeah. And
so that's where it's like, I know it's a touchy subject because it's always like, you can't put yourself in these shoes, and I don't want to be in this either. Right. But you learn from this situation where it's like biblically, when I read about Paul in jail, talking about I could do all things through Christ. I've learned how to live with an abundance, and I've learned how to live with lack, which is a very interesting statement because he says, so I understand learning how to live with lack, but you have to learn to live in abundance.
Right. You
had to learn it. Like to me, it's I'm pretty intuitive. If you give me everything I want, I'll live. That seems intuitive, but he had to learn.
That's right.
So there must be a learning to that side.
That's a good point.
But with him encouraging believers with his letters from jail, where seemingly all his power is gone.
Yeah.
But he hasn't given it away.
Right.
It's no one's fault.
Nobody's fault.
And that's just where he has to be.
Yeah.
That's where God has him.
Yeah.
And he's happy about it.
Yeah.
And he's not experiencing, I shouldn't say happy, but he's joyful.
Joyful.
Because he's partaking in God's plan.
Yeah.
And that's an amazing thing.
It is.
It's a beautiful thing, and it's very scary to me. Like sometimes I pray like, God, let your will be done, and I go, kinda,
Yeah.
like
Yeah. For sure.
like min max,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
medium rare,
Yeah, for sure.
but yeah, but you see, there's moments, there's people in my life that have been content, maybe not perfectly, but enough for me to like experience this incredible attraction to that trait.
Yeah.
Like it's like, oh, that's it.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
and yeah, and not cheesing it, not being like, well, no, I don't want that thing because whatever.
Right.
It's stupid. No, it's not cheesy. It's true. Like I don't need it.
Yeah.
Unless I get it, then I must
That's
need
fine.
it.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
I must have needed it.
Yeah. So going back to the mat for you, how much of this, okay, you made this decision and kind of worked through the stuff in New York. Did you see, I mean, obviously, again, my theory is how you do anything is how you do everything. Did you see a direct translation from your spiritual life and your mental state to the mat? And because it seems to me, looking at your record and what you accomplished, it elevated, everything elevated.
Yeah, I mean, again, it was a slog for me. I think that I needed, like, I think I was good enough to win the world. Now, there's a couple categories, right? So there's someone that's going to win no matter what, right? You have a 2011 Jordan Burroughs,
Right?
Where it's like there would have had to have been like a meteor hit the building,
Right.
for someone to stop him from winning,
Yeah.
right? It's just he was the best in the weight, so much so that the ref couldn't take it from him. The cheap shots from his opponent, it just couldn't.
Yeah.
Then there's the reality of life. There's people that can't win the world.
Yeah.
Not enough talent, right? And so they can work really hard. They just don't have the feel for that particular thing.
Right.
And then there's the tweeners, right? And I feel like it's like you can win, but you need a little help from something outside of yourself,
Yeah.
right? So for me, it was like a little better draw, a favorable call here, you know, a different circumstance there, a don't get injured there, right? Like I needed something outside of my control to lift me up to win the worlds one time. And I think if I would have won it once, I would have believed
Gotcha.
more. Like I believed, but it's
Right.
like no one truly believes. I'm under the idea that no one actually believes until they do it once.
But that becomes knowledge, though, right? I have to experience it.
Yeah, once you do it,
Yeah.
then you can believe you can.
Right.
The first time you have to convince yourself you believe.
Right. So which one? I guess my theory would be that the first one's faith, the second one's knowledge.
Yeah. There you go.
Yeah.
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you don't know
No.
until you've done it.
Right.
That's why it feels the first time you do something, it's almost like, am I dreaming? And the second time you're like, it's very clear.
Right.
You can remember every
Right.
moment.
Yeah.
Like the first time you're like, I don't know what happened.
Right.
And the second time you're like, detail.
Yeah.
Detail. Cause you were in it. You were in it. So yeah, I think that, you know, I beat a lot of people that won, but I mean, for whatever reason, I couldn't do it.
Yeah.
And so, but yeah, like as far development wise, I mean, I think my first quad, I think one of my biggest issues for me as I see it, and this isn't an excuse, it's just a reality of my situation, was my mind took too long. And by the time I could understand how to get the most out of my performance, my body deteriorated. So my strongest mind and my most functional body never overlapped. So I would say the closest I came was 2014, where, because my first cycle, I was just like, if I don't medal in the Olympics, catastrophe. None of this is worth it, right? I mean, there's a lot of bad, you know, it was like I was still motivated, you know, but it was, I didn't understand a lot of the stuff we're talking about.
Yeah.
And then as I think that 2014, I had some really good performances, and my mind was kind of I started to see things a little more clearly. How the importances of risk, the importances of courage, that like this statement kept reverberating in my mind. I actually want to see who the better wrestler is. I don't just want to win the trophy.
Yeah.
Right? I don't just want to win the trophy. If I'm not better,
that's good.
I just got to shake his hand.
Yeah, that's good.
Because so much of my life was I want to be better.
Yeah.
But then it turned into a question. Like, are you actually?
Right.
Like, cause I know you want the medal.
Yeah.
But are you better at wrestling? Because if you think you're better at wrestling, go wrestle.
Yep.
But if you just want the medal, you're gonna run. Yep. You're gonna cower. You're gonna protect it.
Yeah. And
so I started to get stuff going, and I had some pretty good. And again, there was some calls, and this happened, and but it was like one of those things where it's like, okay, we're on the right track, and I started to really enjoy the challenge of really, really big matches. Like I remember not being incredibly. I remember thinking in 2014, it's like, let's just scrap.
Yeah.
And that was my last medal. And then 2015, January 8th, I hurt my back. And from that moment, everything changed. Yeah. It became survive.
Wow. So
15, I had to give up my spot. I mean, I made it on the world team, but I had to give up my spot, get a surgery. 16, I was, I got on the team, but then I couldn't wrestle. Like I couldn't train. I'm running on fuel. By the time the Olympics came, I mean, I had wrestled live one time, 2 times since the trials, in 4 months. So it's like at that point, I had no expectation of myself.
Yeah.
It was just like I almost got talked into like, hey, you got to finish this.
Yeah.
Cause I'm like, I'll be done. And then my coaches are like, just see it through.
Yeah.
And I'm like, whatever. But it wasn't important. Like when I lost, it was like, thank goodness it's over.
Yeah.
Because it was just pain. It wasn't fun. It wasn't like diagnosing wrestling problems. It was just pain.
Yeah. And when you can't compete at your best, for someone, especially someone like yourself, it's like you're trying to be the best. You're not trying to win them. Yes, medals are important, but that wasn't the point. Like you said, it was about being the best, and you knew you couldn't be the best at that.
And it takes a hard toll. And that's one, it's like, that's different, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's one that I'm still, I'm still not very good at. I feel like that's one that really, like dealing with injury, when, how long, how much, what's worth it, has become a question that I take very seriously, but also am not very good at diagnosing, right? Because after my experience, I've gone very heavily the other way.
Yeah.
It's like, you hurt your back, quit.
Yeah.
Run.
Gotcha.
Right. And it's like, I know that probably isn't. But it's like, for me, it's like, there's so much that I would give back those 2 teams for a healthy back.
Right.
100%.
Yeah.
2-time Olympian, 1-time Olympian.
Yeah.
1 time. Like, I know that sounds crazy, but it's like, but in the moment as an athlete, you have to convince you. That's the brainwashing piece of this. It's like, there's some brainwashing to be had, and some is bad and some is good. I think that what we talked about, my circumstances don't define me. Right. That's healthy brainwashing.
Yeah.
Right. Transformation of mind. The unhealthy brainwashing is there was probably a time in my life where if you would have said, you win the Olympics and you die at 35, you in? I'd have said, yes, instantly.
Wow.
Insta-call. What do I need to live past 35? I'm Olympic champ.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like, that's the level of psychosis we go into as elite athletes. It's like, you Olympic champ, but you're dead in 10 years. Sign me up. Not even a second thought. True lie detector, like pure honesty.
Wow. Is that just an identity thing? Is that like just because that's everything?
Yeah. I mean, you tell yourself that it's worth it.
Yeah.
And that's what it's about.
Yeah.
Right. And so I think that's the detriment. And I don't think that's necessary to win.
That's not a necessary component to be elite.
No, absolutely not. But I think that elite people's minds go there.
You're right.
And I think that like unadulterated, crazy world culture will push you in that direction.
Yeah.
That's all it's about.
Yeah.
That's all it's about. So I think that that's the one you got to guard yourself from because it sneaks up on you. But for me, I think I got better. But when I really made a big level jump, not far behind was my big injury. And then it just mixed everything up because I was like, love it, but it's like, but you don't.
Right.
It's like, we're like, what about this? Like shoot, but it's like, no, but it hurts. Like I'm not scared to shoot.
Yeah.
I'm not scared to lose. I'm scared of pain.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, and it's not even like, it's like when we're talking with the spine, it's like pain and like, and what, right? Because your mind goes, it's like, okay, so I get under a 285 pound man. I try to pick him up. Can't feel my left leg. What's the gauge here? Like when we're talking with, it's not like my elbow.
Yeah.
Like we're talking with spines. Yeah. So it's like, it freaks you out.
Yeah.
So it takes your mind in all these directions and it's really, it's bad.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, like I said, you know, obviously you had all this success and on the mat and I just, you know, I was curious because you're dealing with all these. You're now a coach, and we'll get into all this a little bit. You're a coach now. How much of this, mindset stuff are you teaching? How much is mindset? How much is physical? Because for when I grew up, it was all pretty much physical. We didn't talk about the mindset of the sports. We didn't talk about mentality much, really, other than like just be a killer. So this is all kind of new in the world of wrestling and just in sports in general. Are you coaching the mindset? How much do you think is that important to do that?
Well, I mean, for me, it's incredibly important. Yeah. I think it's one of the most important pieces because of what we talked about earlier, and that's not everyone I touch is going to achieve their dreams.
That's right.
I would say the majority won't. So they might be really good, but achieve their dreams.
Yeah.
That means just win the Olympics, right? Because if you're good enough to win college, you dabble in international.
Right.
And if you get good, you want to win the big one.
Yeah.
Right. So eventually it all funnels up to the tippy top of the sport. And nothing else is good enough.
Yeah.
And so I would say for the most part, most people you talk to will not raise to that.
Yeah.
Right. But you must let them understand that the values and the virtues they're developing are absolutely worth it, no matter what.
Yeah.
They're absolutely worth it. This is a very unique time in their life where they get incredible feedback to change.
Yeah.
Right. You go into the business world, the stress changes. I'm not saying it's not stressful, but it's sneakier and more volatile.
Right.
Right. A decision you didn't think is a big deal can ruin you.
Yeah.
In wrestling, it's hitting you in the face. Mm-hmm. Figure it out. It's very clear. It's plastered on the wall what you need to do.
Right.
It's just hard to do. And so I think that this time in your life, you must take advantage of it.
Yeah.
Because it's not here forever. And from here on out, most stressors will be way sneakier.
Yeah.
You must tell them that every time they fill the cup of virtue, it's worthy to be praised. Right? That was a courageous act. Good. That was a disciplined action. Good. Every time you do anything virtuous, it's worthy to be praised. Even if it didn't get you the title.
Right.
It was worth it. And it was worthy of our praise.
Right.
Very good job for that thing.
Yeah.
And then just understanding that when you do that and you do hard things, because the reality is this, why is it cool to be a good wrestler? Because wrestling's hard as crap.
That's right.
Right? I mean, it's like no one's like, I'm a really good grocery shopper.
Right.
Right? Because it's not cool.
Yeah.
Because it's not hard and everyone does it. It's cool to be good at things that are hard for other people.
Yeah.
That's why it's cool.
That's right.
Right? So it's like, why is it cool to be an elite athlete? Because there's not that many of them.
Yeah.
Right? Why is it cool to be able to read a 700-page book in an hour? Because no one can do that.
Right.
So you have these speed readers that are on TV and you're like, holy cow, if that's real, that's incredible.
Yeah.
Like elite in anything is cool.
That's right.
Because it's hard.
Yep.
Darts. That dude can hit bullseye every time. That's unbelievable.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
So the reason why elite is cool and in a sport like wrestling is very hard to do.
Yeah.
So, but where it perverts is I understand. I just hope it's easy for me.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm glad it's hard because now the world will say my accolade is cool.
Yeah.
But I hope it's easy for me. Yeah. Maybe that guy rolls his ankle. Maybe he's, cuts weight bad.
Yeah.
Maybe all my opponents, get in a car accident.
Right.
Right. It's like, whatever it is, you have these moments where you're like, I love wrestling because it's so hard. I just hope it's not hard for me.
Yeah.
And that is a downhill slope.
Yeah.
And you need to prepare these men, because the cool thing is, if you've thought it, I've thought it.
Yeah.
That's the reality. If third string 133 pounder in Nebraska has thought it, Jordan Burroughs has thought it.
Mm-hmm.
He's thought it. It's gone through his head. Now Jordan's probably overcome it,
Yeah.
but he's thought it.
Right. Yeah.
And so the fact that some of the stuff that's paralyzing athletes, they just need to hear it. They need to hear themselves say it. They need to hear someone say it.
Yeah.
They just need to hear it. Like when it's in your brain, it feels alive. It feels like it has power.
Yeah.
The second it hits oxygen and circles back to your ears, you go, what?
Yeah.
My parents won't love me if I lose a wrestling match? That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
But in your head, it feels real.
Yeah.
But you got to hear it. And so that's why with the honesty piece and being able to talk and teaching people that these pieces of the puzzle are massive for performance.
Yeah.
It's big.
Yeah. It's good. So coaching or competing, which one do you prefer? It's a tough one, I know, but it's
a tough one. I mean, I would say, competing was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I mean, I really enjoy coaching, but there's nothing like the highs and lows of competing.
That's right. Yeah.
And you got to get used to it. And I think that now with like in the state that I'm in, I love the art of wrestling, but right now I would say coaching, because I have drained the tank of competition.
Right. Yeah.
Like I have no desire. I really do. I like still wrestling.
Yeah. You still on the mat, aren't you?
Yeah, I still on the mat.
No.
And I do like the art of wrestling. But if you were to tell me, hey, why don't you try to win this tournament? There's no desire. It's not like I'm not like, oh, that's scary. No. Like even to the point, like I think my back would hold up.
Yeah.
But it's like, I don't want to.
Yeah.
Like, there's no desire to compete for personal glory.
Right. Yeah.
Like that has ended.
Yeah.
That is drained. I still love the art of wrestling. I think that I can produce pretty decent wrestling still, but the desire to win something is gone. But I will say, like sometimes when I see people compete, it's like, I remember that was fun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like when all things considered, like it was like, I was pretty you have your complaints and like, man, I'd rather not be here. But it's like, now I'm the man outside the arena.
Yeah.
And again, it's like, that was cool.
Yeah.
Like the opportunity, that's a cool opportunity.
Yeah. I mean, you coached, I know you coached over at Ohio, and now you're coaching out here in Nebraska with the Huskers. Was there other coaching involved in there as well? I mean, obviously Coach Jordan as well. I saw you over at Final X with him. Is there other coaching in there as well? Or are those your two main stints?
Those are my are my stints. So yeah, I competed till 2016. Then the fall of 16, I got on staff at Ohio State.
Okay.
And then right from Ohio State, I came here. So official positions, like, I mean, wrestling, it's a brother, so it's like all my, I have like helped my friends.
Sure.
And, it's like if someone says, hey, what do you think about this? Or do we have these kinds of talks, with people that you don't necessarily like, they're your guy, like they're at your place.
Right.
But yeah, as far as like careers in coaching, yeah, those two.
Yeah. This is a question for you. Is all good things born out of suffering?
I mean, I don't know. I don't like to talk in absolutes.
Right.
So my mind instantly goes to, well, not
everything.
They can't be everything, right?
But it
seems like, yeah, I mean, I definitely think that the things I'm most proud of about myself, the things that I hold most dear in my character came from, maybe I would change that to overcoming suffering.
Sure.
Because if you just suffer.
Right. Yeah, sure. Makes sense. Yeah.
So,
you don't just want to suffer all the time. Yeah.
The ability to like overcome a type of suffering. Yeah. I mean, I would say that's a big piece of it. It's massive.
With that being said, what are you doing now that's that you're overcoming that's causing you to grow?
I think I mean the coaches mentality is it's different, but it's necessary.
Yeah.
I think like training yourself to understand that if another team's athlete beats your athlete, they're not a better man than you.
Yeah.
They're not necessarily a better coach than you. They're not necessarily a better father, right? If someone beats your son in wrestling,
Yeah.
they're not a better father than you.
Yeah. It's tough.
Right? If your kids are less well, if you find a kid that's more well behaved, you're not failing like a father.
Right.
Right? It's like these things where that you attach as a coach and mentor and father. I think that's the fight, because we ask our athletes to be like, hey, I need you to be courageous. I need you to give effort. I need you to have an amazing attitude, and I need you to be a technical master. But me, I'm just we'll see what goes.
Yeah.
You know, like if I'm sad, I'll act sad. If I'm happy, I'll be happy. If you piss me off, I'll yell. It's just, I'll do that, but make sure you're courageous. You hold it together. I mean, it's like, it's not fair.
Yeah.
So I think that all too often coaches were athletes and they think that, well, I did my time.
Yeah.
So now it's just a smoke. No, we still have a job. We have to put on this action. Like these are our action things, and that's motivate correctly, remind constantly, keep people in the right value system, set the culture, have the relationship, create the practice, nurture the creativity, all those things. And I think that you can get, especially in coaching, a lot of things aren't under your control. It's like you don't get a recruit.
Yeah.
You don't get, you're second in a couple of recruits. I mean, you can be one recruit away from the nationals or sixth. You get, one recruit that can change, you're the best, you're the worst. Right. So it's like, so a kid grows up and, he's just, this kid can be the difference to be a national champ, and he connects with a different coach.
Yeah.
You don't get him, right? Does that make you a worse person? Does that make you unsuccessful? Do you suck? So it's like our metric is measured with just like anything. It's like our metric as coaches is measured as results.
Yeah.
But in sports, the unfortunate piece of it is talent exists.
Yeah.
And so you must I'm not saying development is massive. Development is important, and development is my job, but talent exists.
Yeah, that's right.
And if you can, sometimes talent is insurmountable.
Yeah.
Depending on the situation.
Yeah.
Right. So there are people there. Right. So I mean, two athletes, right? You have A and B. B might be the hardest worker and the best man, but A's talent might be insurmountable for that matchup.
Right.
And I think wrestling, you can muddy the waters because you can inject fatigue.
Right.
So anytime you can inject fatigue into a situation, you can make it manageable. But now if you have talent that works hard too, now it's really hard.
Yeah,
right?
That's true.
So,
very true.
So I think that I try to, just the life in my head. Obviously it's a lot of it is the Christian fight, right? It's like, what are you doing behind closed doors?
Yeah.
When no one's watching.
Yep.
How do you view yourself? How do you treat your wife? Are you irritable fast?
Yeah.
Do you only want to talk? Are you learning new things? Do you listen to people? Do you give them a chance? Do you prejudge? Right? I mean, it's a smaller scope. It's did you equip this man well?
Yeah.
Did you talk to him correctly? Did you tell him you love him? Right? Do you actually love him?
Right.
Or did you read that's what good coaches say? Right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's you diagnose your motives.
Yeah.
Now, so it's
That's
like
good.
you can't. There's no performance metric for me. It's like I have to get. I ride the coattails of other kids performing, but my metric is purely mental.
Yeah.
And it's sometimes. I mean, it's definitely not. I wouldn't say it's definitely more difficult, but it's just you have to find it.
Yeah, for sure.
It's not as overt.
Yep. yeah, I've kind of moved into this place in my life in the last 10 years where, again, the competitive side's not as prominent, but my wife and I talk about all the time, like kind of like trying to learn to master yourself. And that's our daily battle. Our daily war is to kill the flesh and to dive into your mental space and your spiritual space and try to really overcome those things that are deep rooted. And that's some of your life's best and hardest work.
Yeah. And most admirable.
Yeah, for sure.
Because I think there's nothing more worth your time than that.
That's right.
I mean, what else is, because again, you have an amazing business, but you don't have that. What do you have?
Right.
I mean, you have an incredibly successful family, but you don't have that. I mean, without peace, without purpose, without contentment, without the search for that, without the desire to, serve the Lord, it's like, what do you got? Yeah. So it's massive.
Well, that'll probably lead me to one of my closing questions here is, what is success to you? And it's a tough question, but it's personal. What would that definition be for you?
I guess I'll try to answer it with, obviously there's a piece to success, which, it ties into like worldly functionality, like I don't know if you could say you are dysfunctional in the world and are successful. Mm-hmm. Right. So I do think that that's a piece of it, but obviously it's not going to be like trophies and stuff like that. It's, I would say it's character and who you are and how well can you control the human stress response, access to courage, effort, and keep your motivators in the right realm, right? So someone who is not shaken by people around them, they have a strong identity, right? So it's like, oh, I'm at this group, they're saying this, I better change, right? Someone that's totally okay with who they are, and they have a distinct path they're on, and it's a virtuous path. So I'm not saying like, okay, well, this guy's a serial killer, but he is convicted, right? So it's not that. Yeah. But it is a virtuous path to serve, right? So to be kind, to constantly keep improving, to evaluate, and be able to, obviously the biggest one for me, and this is personal, because obviously this is not in any realm defined success in the world, is you must believe God says who he is. Right. Because I think that all the good you're doing apart from God isn't doing you any good. Yeah. Right. I mean, it's just not. Yeah. It's you can donate millions to charities in Russia and Africa and Brazil. You can build houses for poor people. But if you don't have life, it's great, but it's not, it's dead. Yeah. So I think that someone who's serving the Lord and is in a constant state of trying to detach from this world's values, and sees themselves in the light and the value system of the Bible, would be someone who I would admire as a successful person. Agreed. That's a good one. Good answer to that. Wrestling question here. Last wrestling question. Your Mount Rushmore of wrestlers. Mount Rushmore. I mean, I would have to go. I mean, this is so overplayed because it's just I have to go accolades.
Yeah,
you know. I mean, I
understand. Yeah,
I just have because it's so diverse styles and stuff. So I mean, I have to go JB, John, Bruce, Kyle Snyder.
That's a good list. I mean, like you said, it could. There's a massive list that could be there, but those are you can't argue those like, based on accolades.
I mean, yeah, it's just they've done incredible stuff.
Yeah,
and I think Kyle will set himself apart in the net. You know, I think he'll win his 4th this year.
Yeah.
You know, especially with no Dlagnev in the bracket, I can't see anyone else beating him. So I think he sets himself apart with his 4th gold. I mean, 6, 6, 5, 4. I mean, it's what do you?
Yeah.
So that's the list. I think that there's wrestlers that create beautiful wrestling that I would rather watch sometimes than those. But
sure.
I mean, the reality is you got to perform.
That's right. That's a good list. Great list. Well, I like to end it like this. I like to speak this positive over people and just kind of what I get from people. And like I told you before, man, you're a man that's just respected and loved among your peers, but not just the peers. What I find really interesting is that the spouses, and people that are removed 1 or 2 from the sport, I've heard your name come up a lot, and it's interesting and a cool thing to kind of see from the outside. Just the synergy that's around you. People respect you, they love you, and I think it's because they see a system that you've put in place that creates value around you, and also in others, and you love people accordingly. You create value in them, and then they're drawn to that. So I appreciate that for one, because my daughter and son-in-law have been a part of that system, and they think the world of you and your wife. Didn't you really get a chance to even speak of your wife, but they say she's one of the greatest people on the planet. So
she's awesome.
Yeah. So if that's for another conversation, but we'll definitely have that. But sometimes the Lord gives me like biblical characters to kind of compare people to. And whenever I was praying and just thinking about you, the Lord put on my heart Solomon, and just the sense that you've been pressed and given a sense of wisdom that is beyond you, and it's for what you're doing. You're creating a culture, and the thing about Solomon was he used it for his own gain and kind of went his own way for quite some time. But at the end of it all, one of the most powerful scriptures that I know and I love is that at the end of it all, he says, it would have been better for me just to get a wife and just to enjoy what I had, just this simple life, and I feel like that's kind of where you're at. It's that you had the opportunity at the riches and the golds and all the foreign things that were around you, and you went through that path, but you're in the place now where you see the value of what's real in your life, and you're settling into that well. And the greatest book of your life, I think, is still to be written. And the greatest accomplishments are still yet to be had. And I'm just excited for it, man. I think that you offer so much to so many that whenever this whole thing's said and done, you will always be a wrestler. But I think that your ministry and your love and your encouragement will supersede all the accolades that you've gathered to this point. And I just thank you for it, man. I just speak encouragement over you. I know it's not always an easy life to live inside of our brains, because that's where I spend most of my time as well. But the journey's worth it. And thank you, man, for doing this podcast. I hope you keep fighting for success, and anything that we can ever do to be a part of what you're doing, we're in. I appreciate you, brother.
Thanks so much.
Awesome, man. That's it, bro. That's a wrap.
Awesome.
You just now accomplished the greatest feat. You went longer than anybody that's ever been on here.
Oh,
I always give people a little.
I don't know if that's
a great day. I give everybody a little high five when we're done here. And I appreciate that. That was good.
Yeah, awesome.
That was fun. I hope you had a good time.